G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Scouting Australia podcast, powered by Australian Property Scout Buyers Agency. I'm your host, Sammy Gordon. We've got a special requested show back on today that's been coming in. We've had a lot of inquiry to kick off and keep moving on for this topic and this style of episode. But I'd like to welcome back to the show. He has lived through multiple world wars. He's a fabled man. Some liken his age potentially to that of Gandalf of Lord of the Rings, potentially 3,000 years old. And the face, it tells. Mr. Jimmy Ibrahim, mate, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you calling me a wizard because I have heard that many times in the past. So...
Not super wise. He's one of those like wizards. You're like, where's this guy's wisdom? He's lost it all. Welcome back, mate.
It's good to be back. Thank you very much.
No worries, man. You're looking good for 3,000 years old. Very good.
Well, I'm an antique. They just get better.
Yeah,
Don't you know the value gets better with age?
It depends on what it is. If it's a dish, you throw the thing out. You know what I mean?
Like a fine wine.
Fine wine.
That's
okay,
it.
that's you.
But it's good to be back up here. You're looking good.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, you still working out?
More than you. More than you, obviously. How about you? You've had a bit of a break.
I've had a bit of a break.
How's the torn pec going?
Yes, my wing is still a bit sore. Torn pec. Yes. So
wizards don't need wings, but you just get your staff and you scoot around.
I wish I could just cure it straight away, but teaches you a good lesson. Life gives you lots of lessons.
It does.
You got to know where you're at. And yes,
so 3,000 years in, you're still getting lessons.
Mate, you should always be
learning.
This is the first tip of the podcast. You are always a student, Sammy boy.
Okay.
You are always learning. And the minute you think you know everything, that's when you're doomed for failure. So.
Can I ask you something? Do you still like,
you know, two things.
You should be learning things every day, right? Like it's learning something new every day. Have you done that for the last 3,000 years?
Yes, I have.
Wow.
Yes.
You must be pretty wise. And you're still tearing pecs.
I am still tearing. What? You're always learning.
Yeah, I guess you're pretty old. You're like,
I am.
Yeah.
You're really going on the old thing. Has someone given him 2 doses of coffee? This guy's had his Red Bull.
Nothing.
He's on the protein.
Nothing. It's the gym, mate. It's given me a
He's
flush
jacked
today.
up today, folks. And you know, there's a valid reason why, because I've been hitting up Sammy boy. We did his portfolio. We've done it 2 sections so far. For those that know, that have been listening, we said this particular episode is going to be an absolute cracker because we've already done 1 to 3.
Yes.
And then we did
1 to 2.
Oh, that's right. We only got through 2.
Yeah.
The first
you were talking
episode.
so much shit.
Mate, you had so many. Actually, hats off to you because there's an absolute cracker the first couple.
Thanks, mate.
And then you delivered from 3 to 6.
3 to 6, we punched those out.
But for those listeners out there, the catch right at the end of this last little portfolio brief, you said the clouds came in.
Mate, this was that next 12
Dark
months
times
for me.
Rolled in.
Mate.
We need some thunder or something.
Yeah, it's like the doom of Mordor. That's
there was some tough times. Gandalf's here to save the day.
Here. Well, you're a bit late. You're about 6 years too late, but better late than never.
Better late than never. But I know I've been hitting you up about this episode because the people have been asking, when is Sammy going to do the other podcast? Because you keep teasing people. We
keep asking people what do they want to hear, and they're like, we want like property by property. We want to hear it. And this was a big year. This was a crazy year for me, guys. So much happened, but it was also, like, in my opinion, a very character building year for me as well. Definitely kind of ironed out any sort of weak spots with everything that kind of went down and happened that year.
That's it. You got to roll with the punches.
You do, mate.
Can we set the stage, right? Because I think it's important to go back and just recap for those people.
All right.
So can we just do a quick flyby for the first 6 properties?
100%.
And we'll get people up to speed so they know exactly where we're at, and then we'll go ahead.
This is in response, obviously, to Big J that reached out last time.
J-Dog.
J-Ash. He wrote in and he said, boys, can we have a bit of a recap before and after each ep? Because he would see value in that.
He did.
So mate, delivering on that. And it's a great point, buddy. Well done. Number 1 was Wollongong, purchased for $275. At this point, we're in 2016. So 2016 was at the tail end of the Sydney boom. We were 3 of the 4 years in.
Yes.
So she was probably worth somewhere in the 4s. So it's doing quite well at that point. 275 purchase in the 4s. Value, rents were still average on that thing, $380, $400 a week. Deal number 2 was the build down in the Highlands, $355K purchase. And at the time of there, if we're talking 2016, she was probably worth somewhere in the 6s, probably low 6s. You got my first Adelaide deal at the 155. At this point, she's probably worth around about 200K at that time. Second deal, Adelaide, 177. Same thing, worth around about 210, 220 at that point. First deal in Brizzy, which we ran through. The old...
switch?
Yeah, mate, and the old trust home the people try to help out.
Bit of silicon.
Yeah, the old double brick, four better, 212 purchase. Had that value to that point in the high 200s, about 270, 280. The second Brizzy deal was pretty well exactly the same. 212 purchase, around about that 270K value. I can't remember exactly, guys. Going back a few deals now as well. 35 odd deals back. Anyway, that's a recap. That's it.
And just on
6 deals.
Let's just go. So from Wollongong, you bought the first one in what year was that again? In Wollongong? It was
2009.
2009.
16 plus 3.
So
19.
And I think the important point, again, you need to watch the first couple of installments of this, but you took 3 years to save up for the first Wollongong unit. Then we bought the house and land.
Yep. So we bought the land in 2012 and then we built in 2013.
So it took us 3 years to get into that. So I'm just I'm getting people to understand and visualize the time it takes. So I think a lot of people get too excited thinking, I'm going to go and buy 5 properties this year.
Yep.
You got to start, do your time. So you took a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And then we did Adelaide in 2015.
Yep.
And
Adelaide twice in 2015.
Yep.
Brizzy twice.
In 2016.
2016.
That's right.
This is the tail end of that year.
Yes. So we're up to speed, everyone. We're all hands on decks.
All hands on deck.
Strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. And everyone in between.
This is going to be a good one.
This is going to be a good one because I've actually broken this down into 5 key areas.
Okay.
All right. And the first one I'd like to, because I know there's a couple of things that happen. So
was your recap the first one or is there something else?
Well, the recap is just to get us up to speed.
Okay.
The first bit is about you keep talking about it was a very challenging year. So I'm keen to hit that on the head, get into it.
Yeah.
Get straight into the underbelly.
100%.
Tell me, what happened? I'm worried about
Sorry,
you.
I just laughed.
I'm worried about you.
And underbelly and what are you doing, mate? You just throwing me
You
in
be
there.
careful what I'm doing.
I will be careful. Take it easy. All right, moving on. All right, so what happened that year? Right, one of the big things.
Mate, you've kept us on a cliffhanger.
Okay, so as you like to point out, I'd never made it in soccer, right? Like I never made it to the top level in soccer. I'm just gonna beat you to the punch on that one, so you can't low blow me as you like to do with your staff. And so that year, I knew soccer was pretty well wrapped. I just wasn't. I was still entrenched with work, and I was doing all my renos and stuff. Like that was kind of becoming more of a priority. So it wasn't. I'd kind of for those few years before it, I hadn't really been focusing all that much on soccer. I was playing at a decent level. I was semi-pro. I was playing with my mates, making some decent money, and enjoying it. But I was kind of realizing I was a little bit over the soccer side of things because it can take up 9-10 months of the year, and I kind of wanted to pursue something else. I always had it in my mind if I never made it as a soccer player, I was going to go special forces. And in Australia, there's direct enlistment straight into the commandos. So I always wanted to do SAS, which is Special Air Service. But the other side of it is the commandos, which you can directly enlist into. In Australia, and it's like an 18-month training program. And it's just literally like if you don't cut it, like you go on, see you later. So it was the ultimate test of mind, body, and will to push myself in that scenario. I know you like to joke. I was never much of an athlete, but I've always prided myself on being half decent, and I really wanted to push myself mentally and physically in that space. When I went for it, which would have been early 2016-ish sort of thing, I knew that was going to be my final year of soccer, which was going to be a big change for me. But I went into that knowing that was going to be my final year of soccer and going for Special Forces because I knew it probably would be the following year that I'd get in. Man, everything that I went through, aced all the tests. So like I thought I hope I can get high enough at least to get in. This is for your mental capacity test and all the rest of the sort of thing, aptitude test, I don't know, whatever they call it.
Yep.
I literally got offered everything. So they give you a sheet of paper, right? When you go do your aptitude test or whatever it is. And on the sheet of paper, it's graded from like A to Z or whatever. And as you go down, that's all the different things you're offered. And I remember when I did it and they gave me the sheet, like you wait in this waiting room all day. So they give you this sheet and then you wait, you come in for your medical.
And this is the first thing you ever do is the aptitude test is the start.
That's the start. You got to pass that first to be able to go for anything, right? So I've gone in, I've done it. I'm sitting out there with this sheet and I've got everything sitting on the sheet. I didn't know what that meant. I just thought, oh, you can pick and choose and they tell you where you're rated. When you're given the whole sheet, it means you scored high enough to go for anything at all in the army, in ADF, right? Which there was literally pilot, everything, doctors, everything on it, which obviously would have been all that additional training that you go through for it. But I got offered every single thing on the sheet, which I didn't realize until I actually went into the room. And it was weird. I was like, did the test 8 a.m. in the morning and I went in at like 5 p.m. I've been sitting there all day, like, nervously excited to be able to go in and do it. And I go straight in for the medical. And the first thing they ask, oh, you're a pretty fit-looking young man. Oh, yeah, I've been training a fair bit. Like, super keen to get amongst it. Like, yeah, beautiful. The first thing we need to do is just do the medical and run through all the basic questions, and then we can go put you into the physical. And I was pumped for the physical, man. I've been training my ass off. I was so excited.
All the prep work, ready to go.
100%. What do you think the first question they asked me was?
Have you had any injuries?
Have you had any operations? Because injuries are one thing, right? And you can bullshit injuries. Like I was going to leave most of my stuff out. I've broken a fair few bones in my body. But the one that like I knew there was definitely obviously, pretty extensive medical records on was my hip surgery. And I was like, oh yeah, like the only thing I've ever really had was I had hip surgery. Like, oh, when was that? And I said, it was actually when I bought the unit. It was like exactly the same time in 2009, late 2009. And they go, oh, okay. And what were you wanting to apply for? And I was like, oh, I'm wanting to do direct enlistment, special like commandos, direct enlistment. And they go, oh, you can't do frontline if you've had hip surgery. And I've just fucking just drained. No. I was just like I was stunned mullet day, just like, fuck, like what? And I just sat there and she could just tell like I was like just shocked, just absolutely rocked by this thing. And
you'd prepared for how long for this?
I've been training like a beast. It was like end of season for one, but then I'd been doing all these pack marches like I was running. I was like running with 25 kilos, doing 15K runs in the boiling heat. This is back when it was drought and everything as well.
But did part of you think that if you had the hip operation, you might be a bit sus?
No, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, like we in sports, like it's your knees and your shoulders and ankles and things like that. I'd broken ankles as well, but I didn't declare any of that. But I knew the hip like was going to be I don't know. I didn't even really think about it. I worried more about my broken arms and collarbones and stuff than I did about the hip. And then she's like, yeah, you can't do anything frontline. And I was, it just rocked me. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I battled it and I appealed it and went over like a 12-month period. Actually, it must have been in 2015 I kind of went for all this because I battled it for ages. I appealed it twice. I literally flew down, had my surgeon check me, had all these certificates and reports and checks from my physios and everything. Literally had the surgeon sign off that it's a better hip now with more mobility, more everything than someone that's in pristine condition, whatever, because it had been perfectly done. I had it done in 2019. I'd been playing for 6-7 years at the time, still at a really high level of soccer, and they wouldn't overturn it. And I remember when I got the second rejection, and I was like, nah, that's it. I gotta walk away from this.
And you didn't want to do anything else? There was nothing else that jumped out at you?
At the time, no. It was either soccer or that. After that,
just commandos. But I'm talking about, was there anything else within that you could? No,
no. I wanted. It was a training. I wanted to go and test myself hard for like 18 months because essentially what they do when you direct enlist, they reckon it's you come out the back end, you're a $4 million weapon. They spend $4 million on you in 18 months and just train the shit out of you every single day. It's crazy. It's hectic. I was so pumped for it. But anyway, that was off the table. That was probably the first big one that kind of rocked me. It was all during that kind of 12 to 18 month window. That was the big one that rocked me. Then I went through and quit soccer because I was kind of a bit jack of everything. I was kind of just throwing in the towel and everything, just being like, didn't come off with the soccer. I haven't got that. Like I didn't know what to do in my mind. I was doing all right with property and everything at the time as well. So I kind of kept doing all that sort of stuff and kept doing it. Long-term girlfriend at the time as well. Been with her for many years. We broke up and kind of went our separate ways and everything as well. Engaged with my my idol of a buyer's agent that I always looked up to for years and years, and he had his own story that he was some great guy right at the top, had built this massive portfolio, and I was in awe of this fella. Got fleeced by him, so it was 10K upfront fee. The quality of the properties, that he sent me, I wouldn't even look at them for myself these days for clients. Like I wouldn't even come into my sphere of even looking for a deal like that. They were that rubbish. And after 6 months of rejecting deals, I ended up absolutely losing it. And obviously, telling him where to shove it. But it was a non-refundable fee, and because he'd been sending me deals like it was like, oh, well, I've done, my service has been done sort of thing, but it were the most terrible deals you've ever seen. So I realized I kind of got fleeced on that end and that he was a load of shit. And man, it was all these things. And then by the time that had happened, like it was a bit of APRA were tightening everything up. So then my serviceability was shot. So I'd wasted over 6 months with this fool that was an absolute joke, wasted all this time and then lost all my serviceability in the meantime as well. And man, that was kind of everything that kind of happened in all that period, like to solidify it down into probably 5 or 6 sort of key things over a 12 to 18 month window. It was pretty hectic.
Did you have anyone in your network that could support you during that time? Because I know you're a bit of an insular sort of, you keep things close to your chest.
Yeah, man, no, not really. Like, no one really knew what I was doing. Even like applying for special forces, I kept most of it to myself. Didn't really tell. I've always been one to keep stuff to myself like that. So no, man, no one even really knew I'd engaged with the other BA or anything. Like, I always kept things to myself in that sort of regard. And I was embarrassed too, man. Like, I'd burnt 10 grand on this guy that I thought was going to be the thing that killed me was I went to him I had 6 properties at the time, right? And I went to him with that. I went to them with that. There was 2 of them as directors, and they looked at it and they go, "Oh man, this is rubbish portfolio. Like, we'll smash this thing. Like, we'll be able to take you to the moon with what we can do for you." And so, like, belittled me on my own portfolio and thought that these guys must be unbelievable. So I didn't even question paying the 10K up front. That's actually why at Australian Property Scout, we structure our fees very, very differently. And you'll probably find, if you've ever spoken to us before, if you've ever been a client, or you're ever thinking about it in the future, like, so many buyers agents take full fee up front, or they take half the fee up front. The whole reason we take a very small initial upfront engagement fee is to leave the money on the table that ensures that we do our job. And I don't think anyone should ever charge differently to that. And we'll never change that. Because if money's not left on the table, like, where's the incentive to do a good job? You just want to get them off their books. Like, that's obviously the way that this guy thought and the way that it was operated. So,
but can I ask you, why did you'd already had 6 cracking deals. What, like, just...
You want to know the truth of it?
Yeah, it surprises me why you went...
I went for a strategy session. So I'd been reading about this guy back from when I was 19, 20, and I went for a strategy session with them. And the way they pulled apart my portfolio as if it was so shit, I thought, these guys must be beasts. All I went there for was the strategy session, but it was an upsell, and it was upsell to it. And that's where, like, they sold me into the fact of how good their deals must be to do this thing and to go down that route. So yeah, man, it was I got sold on it. I got absolutely fleeced. And yeah, man, it was a long time there where I wanted to kill this guy. Eh? Like, there was very upset because at the time, man, I was making like I probably was making 70 grand a year. So 10 grand was like 10 grand's a lot of money. I don't really care
at any time. Yeah,
where you're
absolutely.
at,
Absolutely.
in your life. 10 grand's a lot of money, and that's 10 grand of like after tax dollars. You know what I mean? Like, it's not pre-tax or anything, so that's a lot of money, and it was a huge amount of money to me back then, and I think that's why I take such good care of when people come through now, because that always just triggers in my mind. Like, I'm always wanting to look after people because of what happened to me there. But yeah, man. Anyway, it's water under the bridge.
Just on that, I know we can't talk about who that actually was. Yeah. However, can you give us an idea of why the deals were so bad? Like, I think for someone to take away from it,
easy. So he'd send me shit that, like, it's off market, great deal. I've got these 3 to choose from in terms of units. It was in the central, like, the first time he ever sent it to me. It was in the Central Coast on market. They were off market. He had these 3 units he had access to, and I literally went online in the same block. I found units 30K less than what he'd sent me sitting online, and I'm like, dude, what about the ones that are just online? Like, I just fucking buy them. And at that time, I was just like it didn't really register straight away. Like, I didn't realize, because I had so much trust at the time. Yeah, it didn't really register. And then it was like 2-3 deals in, and I was just like, hang on, mate. Like, these are shits. Like, what are you sending me? He's like, oh, no. Sydney's going to come back. It's going to have its run, and all this sort of stuff. But I'm like, but man, these are like above market value. What happened to below market? What happened to buying in the right market that hasn't already had its run? Like, those markets have just doubled in the last 4 years. Like, why are we even looking at it? Couldn't explain to me. Just kept saying, no, we need Sydney. And then I said, no, I don't want Sydney. I can buy myself in Sydney. And they started taking me to Brizzy and Gold Coast, and he'd buy me he'd bring me shit in blacklisted postcodes that banks wouldn't lend to. And I'm just like, man. And I just built. And then I think I was in Europe with my now ex back then. And I remember he sent me something, and it was just like, it was the final straw in the thing. He was trying to like pressure sell me on it, and I just lost it. I absolutely fucking lost it. I actually still remember I was sitting in a hotel in Florence, and I just remember this sometimes I've got this weird memory. I remember
this is the beginnings of the bullshit. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Now you know where it came from.
And I just lost it. I was lost
over a panini in the middle of Florence.
Pastizzi.
Okay, so you were in the middle of Florence, losing your shit. Well, the Italians probably thought you were just having a conversation because 100%. They're very vocal and emotional.
Like, hey, my brother. It's like, I was losing.
So you ripped him in the middle of Florence. Yeah, you'll never forget that conversation.
Yeah. I definitely won't. But it was good, man. Like, actually, for so long, it ate me up for big time, right? Even now, it eats me. It's 10 grand, you know. Today, back then, whatever, it still eats me up on that side. But like, I love it because my moral compass is I know it's always right. Right, my moral compass is right. I'm fine from that regard. I never question anything I do because I know what I do is.
You have the right intentions.
100%.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it also it eventually formulated into me becoming what I am today in terms of a buyer's agent. And he's an idiot because I got over 40 properties in my portfolio now. Like, I would have done the whole thing with him if he'd done the right job, and he wouldn't have created a direct competitor that's probably bigger than him now as well. So, but yeah, man, greed got into his eyes, and he made that call.
It is such a short-sighted approach, and often I get these questions asked by some of our callers about what is the intention, like what's the incentive?
Yeah,
it's like, well, if you don't do the right thing by a client, why would they ever buy another property with you?
100%, man. I'd prefer to work with 100 clients that are committed to me that I build their entire portfolios out, and I build 10 properties for each client. For 100 clients, there's 1,000 deals as opposed to 1,000 deals with 1,000 clients that all want your blood. Like, are you kidding? Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Like,
there's no incentive for you to do one deal for anyone, is there?
It doesn't make sense in my mind at all to go down that path, you know? It's like every time you do a deal, you want to be surprising people with locations or the quality of the deal or the discount or whatever. Because when you do it, like, they're never coming back. You know, like,
and can we also say, I just want, because it just reminded me, if someone is asking, for our listeners out there who are contemplating using a buyer's agent, and the buyer's agent does say to pay the full fee up front, you should be...
Fucking run. Why?
Even if they say there's a guarantee, we'll give you the money back.
Why? Why do you need the whole thing up front? Prove your worth. That's when you get the rest of it. Prove your worth when you get the deal done, and I'm happy with the deal that comes through. Yeah, I don't believe in it at all. Even 50% up front, like, it doesn't make sense to me. There's not enough on the table. Like, yeah, I like it. I like having those smaller up fronts because it leaves a large amount on the table that you've got to go and prove your worth. And
it's actually funny you should say that, because we in investing, we always talk about risk mitigation.
Yep.
So if you're trying to mitigate as much risk as possible with any purchase or anything, why wouldn't you do the same thing engaging a specialist?
100%.
You're mitigating your risk. If you're only putting in a tiny portion...
That's a bit of gold, Jimmy. That's a bit of gold.
Well, I thought you'd like that. About time.
How many centuries ago did you learn that one?
Pause this, because is that the first compliment the bull shark has given out?
I'll take your leg off soon, mate. Shut up. Keep moving.
Jeez, I think people nearly swerved off the road just there. They thought, are we listening to the right podcast? All right, so let's move on. So it was a bad year.
Yeah, it was a bad year. It was a shit year.
I know you don't like talking about your feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
But I know you've glazed over a lot of that stuff. But I dare say, and I don't want to diminish it in any way, because I understand how challenging it would have been. I mean, a relationship on its own is challenging, but when if you envisage yourself doing this role as a commander or something, and it's taken away, I mean, that in itself is like...
That's what I said, man. It was a huge year, but it was like, it's a year where you go, you know, bury your head in the sand or you know, go get, you know, racked up off your mind in Mykonos or something, you know what I mean? Like, it's a year where you bury your head in the sand and write yourself off for the next few years, or you let it harden you up, you turn that into something else, and then you keep pressing on. And
I know we're talking about the numbers, but I think that point there, just for everyone listening, and because I've gone through my own really tough times and stuff like that. I think people look at your portfolio and see 40 properties and all that. But for everyone out there, if you're going through some real shit things or you're going through some challenges, understand that this is actually this is part and parcel. The law of exchange does not reward you with a clean, easy path. You have to go through some shit
100%
in order to come out the other end. So it's a necessary thing.
Yeah.
So hang in there.
Yeah. If you want to get to the top, like, you're gonna get smacked somewhere. Something's gonna happen, whether it's a deal that turns bad or you lose some money on something, or someone, you know, or something happens and takes things from you. Like, it's all a learning experience, and it's all a lesson for life. And that's why, like, I never look at anything as lost money. Like, even though I don't look at it as a lost money, I look at it as a huge win for what turned me into the person that I am, and made me go down the route that I've gone down in terms of the buyer's agency side as well, because I'm so passionate about it. I literally would never put a shit deal in front of everyone. People kind of hear me say that and they think, like, oh yeah, he says that. I think
it's a flippant comment. They think you say that to everyone.
They think I just throw it off. It's like, no, like, I literally vet every deal. No shit deal goes out the door. No one has access to the APS clients except for me. I vet every deal, comes through, check it, it's got to meet everything, and then bang, here's a client that goes with it, because the mistakes can never be made. Like that's how I view it when it comes to property. You got to mitigate mistakes as much as possible, and there is so much riding on this. Whether it's someone that's doing really well in their 30s and 40s, or a young fella starting out in his 20s, or an old guy in his 50s, or an old lass in her 60s, whatever. It doesn't matter who they are, what their walks are. We're all in to try and win. If someone's coming and spending the money, especially spending the money on someone like a BA, which is not a small ticket item, there has to be a big upside and a big win on the back end of it, through everything. And that's why, all facets of it and all parts of it really come into it for us.
So the stage is set.
Yes.
It's fair to say your motivation couldn't be stronger to get your next deal. I'm curious as to your mindset, because you've switched into thought you'd use this BA.
Yep.
He's burnt you. You've had to reassess.
Yeah.
There's you're single. Yeah. Where were you living at this time?
I was still living I was living in that first build. Remember the first build that I did, the second property? I was living in that. Yeah. But I was kind of moving on. It was a point where I was trying to decide what I was going to do, because I didn't really want to live down there anymore, et cetera, et cetera. But kind of moving on from all that, like, this is the big thing, the big recap of everything is the amount of time that I wasted waiting for this other BA to produce the goods that never happened. I hit a serviceability wall because APRA came in. They were kind of making their changes. They were everything was kind of getting clipped around, and there was some big decisions being made there that was smashing everyone on borrowing capacity. So I lost it, because I was obviously a lower income earner. So I lost that window in the market to be able to buy. And that's where, I guess leaving behind all that stuff from the previous year, this is where I started moving on and really trying to find different things to do. And this is where I really learned about not being completely aligned with one person, or like completely committed to one person, in the terms of like, and what I'm meaning by this, I'm actually talking about brokers and accountants and whatnot. I realized I'd hit a ceiling and I hit a wall, because both of them were both my broker and my accountant at the time were telling me, no, you're done, man, you're stuck, you just got to kind of wait.
No solutions.
Oh, make more money, or do this, or go ask for a pay rise, or you need to push rents. I'm like, well, all my rents are maxed. I was like, oh, well, you can, all these different options, that just didn't really solve any of my problems. Like, they weren't really options. They were just like, either wait it out or do these little things, and just like, there wasn't enough that really actually got me into another property, to put it in a nutshell, right? And so, man, I reckon I went through it was like 3 or 4 different brokers before I finally was referred to this one, kind of offhandedly once, and I called her, and just immediately she just started running through solutions. She's like, okay, well, send me everything on your portfolio, which they normally do, get the numbers. They want to see equity position. What can they release, blah, blah, blah. But I went through it, and she's like, yeah, no worries. Like, yeah, you're stuck at the moment. She's like, do you want to keep moving forward? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, how badly do you want to move forward? And I said, like, at the time, I like everything. I quit soccer, didn't make special forces. Like, I was just like, fuck, I got nothing else to do. You know what I mean? Like, this is my route now. Yeah, this is my route. So I was like, yeah, it's everything. Like, I need to do something. And she's like, okay, no worries. Have you ever thought about selling? And I was like, ooh,
the first one. This is
the first one.
Jeez.
Yeah. And she said that, and I was like, no, I never want to sell. And she's like, okay. And this is where, everyone gets this mindset of buy, and never sell. It is bullshit. It is so hard to accumulate forever and never sell. It's so
what
hard.
A quote. I think Tommy's just got his quote of the day. Tommy, I've never seen the producer write so fast.
But man, it's the biggest load of shit, because like, especially, it doesn't matter where you are, because like, people who make more money typically want to build a bigger portfolio. People who maybe make less money have slightly smaller ambitions typically, and they don't need to build as much, but it's still relative. And you're still going to hit what they call a DTI, ratio, serviceability, like ceiling, which is your debt to income ratio. So how much you can actually take on in terms of debt, and then how much of that you can service compared to your income, even including rents and stuff. So I kind of had to like revisit it and go down all that path. And she said it to me, and I started running through it. And sorry to cap on that. That's why you obviously down the track, there's these different things, different times where you're probably going to need to sell. And that's when she said it to me. She goes, well, and she didn't want to say to me what it was. She wanted me to come back to her because she knew what it was in my portfolio. And it was the first one.
She said, you got to sell something.
No. Yeah. She said, you got to sell something. Sorry. Yeah. She said, you got to sell something. But she's like, you have a look at your portfolio, come back to me with what you think you need to sell. And so I looked over my numbers. I was like, nah. I looked over my numbers. Nah. Got to be something else. And I went back to her and I go, oh, what are the different things? And she's like, you know what you have to sell. And I was like, oh, but it's my first one. I don't want to sell it. And she's like, well, like, this is your decision. You got to make a decision. If you sell that, I can get you money. You can get borrowing. We can keep moving forward. And if we start building out some better positive cash flow, she's like, your other ones are great. Like, you've got equity in them, opposite to what these idiot BAs had told me that they were shit deals. Her actually looking at them from a numbers perspective. And what was there? She goes, you got great yields on them. You got equity in them. You can pull it out. But at the moment, you're capped with serviceability. You can't do anything. And she's like, at the moment, the unit's sitting, and obviously she also can't give this advice to actually sell. Because obviously from a brokerage perspective, they can't give that sort of financial advice. That's where they kind of put the ball back into your court. You got to make a call. And like at the time, Wollongong had done quite a great run and was doing really well too. So I kind of went along the track, and this was probably late 2016 going into 2017, like kind of making a call around all this and trying to figure it all out. And then, yeah, man, I actually, it was probably earlier than that, because it took me like 6 months to bite the bullet and actually do it, because I couldn't emotionally bring myself to selling, because I lived in that place for a year or 18 months.
It was your first deal.
Yeah, man, it was first deal.
There's a lot of emotion involved in that.
Man, it was hard. It was tough.
So what was the tipping point? What did you remember? Was there something specifically?
Yeah, I was getting nowhere. Like, nothing was changing.
That's a really important point. If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Nothing changes, man. Like, what are you going to just sit there and spin your wheels? Like, and this is where I started to learn that, like, when markets peak out and you've got money to make and your yields haven't changed, like, why hold it? Why hold it? And it was in a high turnover area. Like, even though it was a great spot, like, you get uni students, or you'd get, most of them was uni students or nurses or whatever, might come in on whatever the, 12 month sort of contracts or whatever. So it was always like every 6 to 12 months I was turning it over, and it was, yeah, man. Anyway,
but can I say to you, the counter to that, some people would say, when you said why hold it, they would say because it's a good property and it eventually will go up again for another growth cycle. So what would you say to the people listening to that?
You're going to lose most of your profit with inflation. So if you have to hold another, like, that market did nothing for over 10 years before it did its run and nearly doubled again, right? So if you hold it, like, if you'd held it from late 2013, where the market last boomed, to 2013 now.
2023.
2003 to 2013.
Okay, yep.
If you'd held it during that period and made no profit, inflation's eaten out your debt. Like, inflation has eaten out your profit in terms of what you actually made on it. Inflation over time obviously also eats out your debt. Like, it's a great part of it. And that's why I don't mind holding debt over the long term. But in that period, if you just held it there and it had stayed, it's from 275, you'd bought it. And then let's say you'd bought it at the peak, and then you were back at the, at the bottom at that sort of money. Like, you've done nothing with the deal. Like, it's done nothing for you. And if you're stuck and you're not doing anything, it's all right, I'm going to wait 10 years for it to double again. How about I pull my money out and do what I've done, in the 6 years since that?
Yes.
The power of that is ridiculous. And that's where I think people don't understand, like, selling down, this is where I talk about this all the time. And, like, I used to always talk about this with closed doors because it's so powerful, but this is the whole idea of this podcast, is giving back. It's the power of getting the debt back. And that's what the game changer was for me with that. Getting debt back and actually getting that back into your serviceability, that's the game changer. And so when I looked at it, and it was very fortuitous timing, because, like, the market, Sydney was peaking out at that time. I didn't really realize or know about it at that time, but Sydney was peaking out at that time, and I made the decision to sell it. Thinking back now, I kind of remember that I'd already put a deposit down on the next property that I bought before I'd actually fully made the decision to sell. So I was almost like pressured myself into selling it, because this mad deal had come along off market, and I completely forgot about that till right now, because I put the deposit on that late 2016. It was another buy and build, right? Like, it was land, and I put the deposit down on it. And thinking somehow magically my serviceability was going to come back around from the agent that I bought the other one from. And yeah, man, by the time I kind of got it, that kind of was what the extra pressure was to sell. Yeah, you were pushing yourself. The extra pressure to do it. Well, I don't think I meant to, but it came around the end. But it was perfect time, because, like, fortuitously made me put it to market in early-ish to mid 2017, and the market, the peak, they called the peak of the market in mid 2017 was when the market peaked and started sliding back. So, like, the fortuitous timing, you sold it at the peak. Yes. Took some cash. You've already put a deposit down. Yeah. Because I'd also leveraged it up. So the debt was now over 300,000. I'd pulled equity out of it at this point. So I've sold it. I've cleared that. I've got, so to run you through, like, really quickly in terms of the sale of that. Yes. I went back to, there was a dude that was actually leasing it. So when I went looking for properties, he was one of the guys that I really struggled to crack. And a lot of the time, things I was looking at for similar money, 275 to 300, were these inferior products, right? But he was selling them, and he was actually selling them and getting more than that. You know, remember I told you there was the one that sold for 310, I'd pay 275. He was one that had sold at 310. And I bought mine through a different agent at 275. So a really key takeaway from this one, guys, from this potty is you should really be buying from one agent and realistically selling through another, because the agent you're buying through should be someone that you can negotiate really hard with, or like they know how to clip things and get things done quickly. And it's not always the case, but majority of the time, the agents that you're buying from and getting discounts from are not typically the agents you're selling back through.
Yeah, you want to be selling with an agent who's going to bleed every
100%.
single dollar.
Yeah. And so we went back to market with him. He wanted to run it at 520 or offers over 520 or something like that, and I said no, bump it up a bit. I want to go for offers over 525 or 525, whatever it was, because that was a neat 250 from purchase price to sale price. I was just like, nah, I just want to do that, have a crack at it. And he listed it, he generated a demand. There was literally only one person that was ready to bid after the open, and he pretty much just hassled him and haggled him and just kept moving it, and he got the 525k sale price. So yeah, man, that was good. So it was pretty well. I'd owned that now at that point for a little under 8 years, about 7.5 years, and cleared 250, which was about, in terms of rate, I think I've worked out for is about 93% in terms of a growth rate from a 275 purchase to that as a sale price, about a 93% growth.
You got to be happy with that.
It's pretty bloody good. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
What would that property now be worth, you reckon, roughly?
It hasn't gone up that much. So it had a big dip after. So when Sydney came back, this is what a lot of people forget. Like when a market peaks out, it peaks and then it comes back. And so it's peaked out, it's come back. And I think I remember looking at it 12 months later and it was down to like high fours or mid to high fours. Yeah, it had kind of come back a solid 10 to 15%.
Wow.
It is worth more now. So Sydney and especially Wollongong and surrounds had a great run during COVID. But it was funny, and we're going to do a comparison app in a few weeks in terms of units versus houses in different markets, and how houses just these days they just so much outperform. Like I had great growth on that side, but then you look at the run during COVID, and houses doubled again, but the units only went up like 100, 200 grand, you know, or maybe call it 30%, where the houses doubled. So I'm very happy I sold that. That might be worth, you know, maybe 600, 650 now, but like if I hadn't done that, like how much of I would have missed out on if I hadn't made that decision? You would have missed out on, and let's talk about the deals you would have missed out on, because you obviously sold that in order to get into the next deal, and you touched on it very slightly. It was a land, and you were building on it. Yep. So it was the same, very similar to kind of that second deal I'd done. I was kept jumping sort of between things. I'd made my you know, idea, or like I knew all these different strategies now that I'd kind of employed. I'm buying below market, getting good positive cash flow, which was good. But I was like, nah, you know what I want to do is I want to do one that I make a real big chunky profit on, and then I'm going to sell it and I'm going to go take the cash, and then I'm just going to annihilate the market, right? But I got this block, and what I saw in this block was what no one else had kind of seen. It was off market. He shopped around to a few people, and myself was one of them. I'd only bought one property in that area at a time, so it wasn't like I was on top of his list or anything. And a lot of people had passed on this block because it was a bit of a different one, a little bit of an awkward one. But yeah, man, I saw something with this block because it was a battle axe, and they kind of had two. So it was an existing house right at the back. It was probably like 6,000 square meters or something. House right at the back. And then there's a battle axe. There's 2 blocks off on the side, but they were really average, like really exposed blocks. I didn't like them. And then you kind of went around the corner, which was around the existing house, and then up to another block that was chopped off right out the back. So the 2 best blocks were probably the one right at the back, and then this little left one, but no one saw it as the best because it was quite slopey. It sloped down a bit, and it was a weird angle. But what I realized on it was 1,100 square meters. And it was the lengthways that you could chop it or dual lock it instead of, so it's kind of almost like a bit like a corner block sort of style site, as opposed to being another battle axe style. So if it was a battle axe style, you wouldn't have been able to chop it again. But the way it was positioned, you couldn't subdivide it, but you could dual lock it. And it's not a granny, it's a dual lock. It's a different code. And so going down that route was like, I'd look at it and I'd go, shit, like even if I can't dual lock, this is a great deal, but that's there. And I called council, I chatted to them about it, and they're like, yeah, you can do that on that block. That block at this time fits the criteria of what you can do. And So the others had sold, and this one was kind of sitting in the middle price of the expensive one at the back, and then the two cheaper ones at the front. But this one was kind of sitting in that middle ground because it was a bigger block, but it was a bit slopey and it was a bit of a curve, and it was kind of seen as a little bit unusable. But I knew what I wanted to do with it, and it really worked in my head, and I just hoped to hell that I could pull this thing off. I ended up negotiating it down to cheaper than the two blocks that sold at the front. I just haggled him and smashed him on these.
The Sammy Gordon negotiation tips.
I just went in for the legs and the ankles and bull-sharked him out. So
I was listening. I was recapping before this episode. Our other when we went through your portfolio, and I love it when you said you just need to get a counter offer. Yeah. So you low ball to get a counter. And it's actually going to be a bit uncomfortable because you are going to get some agents that aren't going to like what you give, but at least you get them on the table. And I think that's a really important point because a lot of people still feel really awkward about that.
Yeah.
But if you're going to save 30, 40, 50 grand or whatever,
you just got to do what you got to do.
That's a big thing, especially if you got no other money. If it all lives and dies off this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you lowballed, got to.
Yep, got a counter on it. Really worked away on everything, and to kind of cut straight to the point on that one, paid $283K in the end on that one. It's $283,000.
Yep.
Yeah, for the land.
Yep.
That was for like 1,100 square meters, and a nice, it was a nice block in my mind. I thought it was nice, and I thought that I could work with it, so I was happy with it at that. And that was a good buy at the time. Similar sort of land, even slopey, but similar sort of land was probably in the mid threes in terms of purchase price on that.
You bought well.
Yeah,
at that. And then
people couldn't see that value.
And a lot of those people that were buying in there weren't essentially looking from an investment perspective. They were homeowners.
Yeah, the other three were all homeowners. The other three all literally bought to build to own or occupy them, which is good because they're going to finish it to a good standard and they're going to live in it.
Absolutely.
Right? So it was good.
So you went to build. What was the plan?
Yeah, so obviously kind of if we take one step back again, I kind of went through that pressure situation. You kind of had to go back through it all, and I'd kind of put the deposit on it in my personal name, so I had to go down that route. The good part of it was getting the dual lock side of things. We're going to be able to get quite a good strong yield.
When you say dual lock, for those people that are listening that don't really understand what you're saying, so you're saying a dual occupancy.
Yeah.
So you're planning to build something else. Is that what just to clarify for some of the listeners?
So like in New South Wales, you can fall under like a granny code. You can fall under like a granny flat code, which is your 60 square meter auxiliary. You can have your 2 beds. As long as you fall under all codes and everything, you can build. You're complying development, 10 days, private certified. You don't even need council. So they're great. They're great for cash flow. Yeah. And then you've got subdivision, which is obviously own title, everything, going through all that. In that middle ground is a dual lock, which depending on your council depends on whether you can individually title it or what you can do with it. But it allows you to build to a different spec and to a different size home. So it really opened that up from that front of what I was able to do with it. Which was pretty cool and which I was pretty excited about. So yeah, anyway, kind of that pressure came in. I was like, holy shit, I have to do this thing. But I got the serviceability back in my own name. And this is where things kind of changed a little bit, and I had to make a couple of sacrifices at this point for this period as this thing was coming up to settle. And what I was able to do was and this changed the serviceability game heaps for me. So had sold that one, got all that debt back, but then I also moved out. And during that, as the time came up, because I already had all my plans ready, I knew what I was going to do with the build and everything. I already had it all lined up with the actual builder before this thing settled. So I knew if I moved back out of that place and I moved back in home for 6 months while this thing was going to be, it was like a 3-4 month build contract, but I gave myself a little bit of buffer. And I was able to kind of do that transition, and my borrowing just went through the roof. When I moved out, I rented the first build. I rented that for about $600 a week. Yep. And then bang, serviceability shot up. Sell Wollongong. Bang, serviceability goes through the roof. And then I'm settling on this thing, and then going through the build process of that as well for this second one.
That's pretty incredible. So
it was cool,
by
man.
Making that decision to change Wollongong. Automatically, your serviceability, just that bottleneck or that blockage was released. So, and the different point here, and the interesting thing to note, guys, and where it was okay because it didn't cripple me. It didn't fully stuff me, and it didn't fully stuff me because of renting out the first one, no longer living in that, moving back home for a bit, and then selling Wollongong. It did open up my serviceability a lot. If at that point I'd gone into trusts, like I would have had probably, I don't know, 800 grand, maybe $1 million that I probably could have serviced at that time in trusts. And the beautiful part is you can kind of keep rolling trusts with different lenders and keep building it like that. My issue was I had kind of a little foolishly, because I didn't understand it all that much at the time, bought this thing, I'd put the contract down on this thing in my personal name. I was contracted, I'd
paid stamp duty because it was, a 9-month settlement from registration and stuff. So I'd kind of gone through. If I changed it, I would have had to pay stamp duty again. And the cool thing was, our building at that time, there was a $5,000 builder's boost. So it was $5,000 off your stamp duty in personal name, but not in things like trust. So instead of paying like $8,500 for stamp duty, I paid $3,500. But if I'd gone, I would have paid the $3,500. And then if I tried to transfer it into trust, it would have gone up. Would have paid the $8,500 again. So anyway, did it in personal name. Realized I was going to eat up my serviceability a little bit, but I ran the numbers and everything with my broker, and she's like, look, you do the deal as long as you get this much in rent, which was the same as what I was renting the first one for, which I knew I could. She's like, as long as you do that, you're going to still have about $500,000-$600,000 in trust once we move forward after this deal. So I was like, all right, it makes sense. I'm not going to unsell it because I thought I could unsell it. I'm not going to unsell it. I'll keep it. I'll build it. I know what I can do with this thing. Happy days. So yeah, man, that's pretty much the path that I went down. That was the next deal. That was essentially, effectively kind of 6 and 7 or 7 and 8 or I sold Wollongong at that time. So it was 6 and 7. I was back down to 5.
And that build was quite easy. That process was pretty straightforward. That was all happy days.
Not really. Man, everything I've done, like especially in the early days with builds and different things like that, you learn a lot during the different processes. And there's an opportunity cost of doing builds as well that take you out of the market for a while. You've got land settling up, so you've got to be quite careful on what you're doing with it. There's construction loans that come into it that take you out of the market for a while as well and whatnot. And you're building without rental income, all this sort of stuff takes you out of the market for a while. There is opportunity cost around it. But all the builds that I did, and I even look at like the first one that I did was I bought one that had the building envelope. So when you build the building envelope, you have to be very selective in terms of your builders, or you need someone that's a little bit more malleable with their designs and they can change things for you, which thankfully I found. But I don't know if you remember in that first one, I struggled a lot with that builder that I thought was going to be awesome for me, build super quick. I lost 6 months because I was trying to get a design to work with them. They just didn't. They weren't willing to change designs, but they were great builders and they were super quick at what they did because they only built their designs. But I just had it in my head as this young investor to build it like that with them. Going to the second one, funnily enough, I went to the builder that turned me down on the first one. And the big reason for it was there was a huge price difference now with the builder I'd used on the first one. Tried to use them again. And it was I actually ended up swapping back. So I'd kind of done the double there, right? So I went with one, didn't work with them, went to the next, then went to go with those guys again, and then had to come back to build a number one, which actually worked out really well because there was around about $40,000 price difference in terms of that sized home at the time of what we could build, because they'd specced up a little bit, and they knew they were a little more workable with their designs, and that came a little bit of a premium for them. They were able to charge a little bit more now because of it. But with my budgeting, it didn't really work. Like I knew I could still build what I want, because the cool thing about it was, as this road kind of curved around, I could chop it straight across, and it was almost like a perfect 550 square meter, 600 square meter block with like another 400 squares left over for the dual lock. So it was perfect. So I literally chopped this thing straight in. I should show you some photos. This thing looked like an absolute dog site when it was kind of finished, because they'd done this huge cut. Like it was a cut and fill. I'd kept under the kind of need for a drop edge beam, but I came quite close to it. So it was pretty well on that 1 meter cut and fill, like 500 and 500 for the 1 meter total, right? Which, if you guys don't understand that, what it is on a building envelope or a building site, if it's a bit slopey, they'll cut 500 from the top and then fill the 500 at the bottom. That's what these guys had in terms of a 1 meter total cut and fill allowance to then level out the site. If it was anything above that, you need to bring in a drop edge beam, which a lot of the time isn't the end of the world, but it can bring in, depending on the slope, maybe 8, 10, 15 grand extra in cost. It's not the end of the world. If you buy the block at the right price, it can actually be beneficial to do it, to kind of, still do a project along those lines. But a lot of the time as well, it's hard to predict and preempt exactly what it's going to be without having a surveyor go out there and actually mark your levels. So anyway, on this one, I was lucky. It stayed under the 1 meter, but it means I had this huge cut out of the right side along this wall. But it kind of worked all right because I had to retain it anyway to build up this top block. So it was kind of cool. I built a retaining wall just under the full, you go to a meter, you have to get it structurally engineered. So I went just under the meter, and we were able to kind of cut a lot of it out and backfill, like the fill that we had left over. It was cool because we were able to, like, that wall that we built, we were able to fill up and level out the top blocks. And now I had these two almost perfectly flat blocks with this house. You know what I mean? And that was what I saw that no one else could see that was going to happen.
The vision, the Sammy Gordon vision.
Mate, in soccer, I had vision. You would notice if you came watching me back in the day.
You
but,
almost had vision.
It's paid over into the building game as well.
I'm curious of the numbers though. What you ended up with the rents and stuff for this. Yeah. Do we have those?
Yeah, definitely, man.
I'm curious as to.
For sure. So in terms of land, the land cost me the 283 in terms of the build. In terms of the land, right?
Yep.
The build price was just under 240. I think it was around about that 238K total.
Okay.
For the build, retaining and landscaping and all that sort of stuff. It was pretty well like a fully cut, cleared block. So I had landscaping. I had turfing.
Yep.
I had fencing. I had retaining walls. I had driveway. All up, that kind of came into around about that 20 to 25. I did a lot of it myself.
Should about 550.
Yeah, you're kind of around about that 550. Actually, no, it would have been a little bit less, I think. Okay. Well, your 280 plus 240 is 520. Plus say around, around your 20, 25 on top. Yeah, call it around your 550. Sorry, mate. So around about that dollar mark in terms of that. Yeah, man. And that was, at the time, I also was pushing through my DA for my dual lock. So it was really cool when that kind of came through and came out. The DA came out, I got it revaled. And because I had the DA, I got it valed. And I got it valed at 800K.
Wow.
In 2017, it would have been. Yeah, I got it valed at the 800K.
Good. So you're in for 550 and then you came back at 800.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Awesome.
Not bad. As I say, not bad. Very good size on equity gain.
Well done, mate. That's awesome. And so were you renting out this other one? Were you planning to rent out the new build?
Yeah. So what kind of happened at that time was my best mate was getting married in Greece. And so I was rushing.
Yasu.
Hey?
Yasu.
Baklava.
Go on. Keep going.
Euros.
Keep going, Euros. Come on, Nick.
So he was doing it, right? So I was rushing to get everything finished before I did it. So I had no real reason at the time to kind of, move in or move into anywhere because I knew I was going overseas. I ended up booking this thing for a little over, it was around about a 6-week trip or something or whatever I booked. So I pretty much had this thing finished, raced to get this thing done. I'd had a handyman and my handyman's son who was also a chippy. Like we were all just like smashing this thing in the final 2 weeks. I had all this leave built up. So I took 2 weeks to finish this thing off. So I had a 6-week trip coming up. So bang, I smashed this thing out and then I went overseas. It's pretty much I finished and like flew out that night sort of thing.
Yeah, good.
And then the next week it was rented for $650 like straight up. Like I just rented it straight away.
So just to recap for that. Yep. So $650 for the new place and the old place was renting for
$600. At the time, I think that was $600.
So we're looking at $1,250 on a $550 per week on a $550 cost base.
Nah, because the other one was that was the old primary residence. So that had its own. That was the one at $355. Right?
Okay,
so that one. Yes, that was still. I think I'd probably pulled that up to maybe low fours in terms of debt at the time. Okay. But my rates were in the fours or something, and then I was renting it for $600 or $620 or whatever it was. So it was pretty decent. But then got $650 a week on that one, and that's where I kind of. When I was overseas, I was like trying to formulate, well, what am I going to do now? Do I build on the dual lock? And I was chatting to the broker and she was kind of running through all the things. And I was chatting to the valuer as well, who had done the value. I called him up and I said, man, I know you gave me that with the DA and everything. Like how much does actually add value when you build? And he goes, in the area, you won't add as much in terms of your build, in terms of what it'll cost. So, let's say it costs you 200. You'll probably only add about 100 thou in value, just to be wary of it. And at the time, they maybe would have rented for low threes in terms of renting that. And I'm like, at the time, it just didn't really stack and it wasn't really stacking for me. So went on my trip, all this sort of stuff was formulating in my mind. I was kind of, man, it was a good trip. Like I just traveled by myself for 6 weeks and just percolated on a lot of different stuff while I was gone and while I was away and really had a big think about everything. And that's when I came back. I was like, this is it. Like essentially failed at soccer, failed at special forces, didn't really know what I was doing moving forward. Got burnt by someone I thought could maybe take me to this different level. And I'm like, no, that's it. Like I'm all in. I've made $250K on a deal, at on a deal at a 550 cost base. Like you're almost 50%, profit on cost of the whole thing, let alone return on investment. So like, and with that as well, I realized I could pull out even at a 70% LVR. I could pull out all my capital plus more and still be at a 70% LVR valuation and still be sitting in decent positive cash flow, even without building it. So man, it was just that ultimate time of reflection and then just realizing while I was away, this is it, man. I'm just going to go hard. Like what anyone else says. I'm just going to go hard at this thing. I don't care. This is what I'm just going to throw the kitchen sink at this thing, throw the fridge at it, throw the stove, throw you, just throw everything. Just have a real good crack at this thing and run.
This was the all-in moment. This is when you thought, especially because that kind of money, when you're thinking about you were earning 70 grand in your job or whatever you were earning from the farm or whatever, that light bulb moment that you thought, well, I could make this kind of money by doing this.
Yeah.
That was just the conviction to say, you know what, maybe I can do this full time.
Man, that was it. Like I had that light bulb moment and I came back and I sat down with my parents when I got back because I was still working on the farm and I said, I'm busting my ass. And I reckon like I feel like I'm being underpaid for how hard I'm working with this. And I just wanted to give him the upfront of like, I'll work with you if I'll a few months and whatever to find me a replacement, or I need my pay to go up. Like I think I asked to go to 90. I think I was at 70. I need to go to 90 because this is what I want to do. And I need a better income to do it. So either I can get it here and I'm happy to stay here and keep working everything. I was pretty over it at the time. It was a very labor intensive job. It was literally glorified labor, man. I was just bust my ass every day. And it was either that or I was going to go off and do something else. And I kind of wanted to become a builder because I was like, I could be a mature age apprentice, get my chippy ticket in 3 years if I go mature age, get a builder's license within probably 18 to 24 months of that and be building my own projects. So I was like, that started popping in my head, but they didn't want to lose me. So like, all right, no worries. Like we'll put it up to that. And whatever. So it kind of
straight up 20K pay rise.
Yeah. Mate.
Jeez, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so was that something that you thought when they said, yeah, okay, in the back of your mind, you're like,
I should have gone harder.
Meanwhile, there was no food on the table anymore because Sammy is pocketing the extra 20K.
I was eating the stock feed. There was no food left in the fridge. I was eating the stock feed. It was what I had to do, man. Like quite honestly, like if I was almost working two people's wages, right? And two people like would have been paid 60 grand each, a year to be doing that. So they were still, in my opinion, I was still getting a good
Absolutely.
Deal on what it was, but I needed that to keep moving forward. And I was just continually working with my broker around all this as well and really like figuring out, what do I need to do here at each of all these different levels? What am I needing to do here to keep going to the next level? And she kept giving me, these are the different things you need to, like selling the Wollongong. You got to ask for a pay rise because you need more money or you need to do something else to make more money to keep going. And then she said to me, because I said, I actually want to hang on to this thing and not build the dual lock yet. She goes, okay, well, what's the game plan? What are you going to do? Or like, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to go as hard as I can. And she goes, okay, if you're not going to build the dual lock and get that extra income now, you have to chase the highest yield properties you can find. She said you have to do like that first deal in Adelaide that has to be at that level or better. So you need 8% plus yields. You need to make 10% on the way into every deal. If you can do that, I can keep getting you money because we're going to transition into trust and I can keep getting you money.
Yeah, wow. This is the turning point from your personal name into trust.
Into trust,
And you had a very specific brief.
Yep.
Which is what's screaming out to me is, and there's so many little pearls that you've of wisdom that you've given, but have you learned anything? I have. I actually added another 300 years. I think I've already, with the amount of...
You look like you've added 300 years.
One of them was, and you constantly talk about your broker who has been pushing you to get better results.
Yes.
And they've been guiding you because if you stayed with your previous broker that was not solution focused or didn't really understand what you were trying to achieve, you wouldn't have a very clear objective of what you were going to do. So I love that. And every time you reference her, she was very specific as to what you needed to do to improve your situation, which is the key. That is what we talk about with the key, your circle of influence. These people are helping you, pushing you to get better results. So that's a real key lesson for everyone listening. Ask yourself with those circle of people around you now, are you having those conversations? And if you're not, you need to start looking at someone who will.
100%. Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more with it. And that's why like we have those conversations with our clients because it's, if you sit on your hands, you don't do anything, or you're not given direction, or you're feeling a little bit lost, like you're going to stay where you are, or you're going to misfire and do something wrong, right? And that's why like we keep people kind of recycling and buying the right properties and getting the right yields and then making the right margins on the way in because they keep this velocity going, this compounding effect of doing the right deal after the right deal after the right deal and adding the right things into the portfolio. And even there comes those times like we did Liam's portfolio a few weeks ago where it might have been a month ago, whatever it was now, where we got to a point where serviceability changed the game. with interest rate rise and everything, and we had to take a step back. But sometimes, not sometimes, you always need an external source that has that higher level of knowledge than you as to how you keep going with it. Because it's very hard to actually attain that higher level of knowledge without stuffing up, without making those mistakes yourself. You can preempt, you can learn as much as you can, but until you actually go through it yourself, it's actually really hard to learn it, and that's why I read all this sort of stuff but I still couldn't forecast, and I still hit that wall, and I still had to come to that point where I had to sell. But I realize now that that's totally okay. That's part of the journey, and that's fine. You just got to know how to move past it.
Absolutely. All right. So moving forward from here, because we're
an hour in. Do we still go to the next one? I think we do it. You know what? I planned for it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
If the people don't like it, if you only got an hour, guys, then all good.
You might have to listen to this in two parts. But if you're into it, I mean, obviously there's a lot of great stuff here. And I say this to people all the time. If you're
say it to me, Jimmy.
If you are serious,
please,
about wanting to improve your situation,
yes,
then you would do anything to do it. So if it's listening to something for an extra 20 minutes or 30 minutes or reading something, or you do it.
This one is gold as well. So stay tuned, guys, because this one is gold. I love this deal.
Let's jump into it then.
Let's do it.
So we've already got theoretically 5, because we had 6.
7,
we sold, and then we've come back.
Yeah, boom, boom.
Dual lock, back up.
So now we've got the extra rental plus the block there too.
The block ready to go.
Yep. So now I know I needed very strong cash flow. So to me, I was looking at how can I find 8% plus yields? I knew I had to do that. But in the trust, even though I kind of bulled that, because what happened here, guys, I was kind of maxed with a lot of my properties. Vals weren't coming in the best. They were okay, but Brizzy and Adelaide, vals weren't coming in amazing. Values were there. I could see values there, but value was still quite conservative. I couldn't get strong enough vals to actually be able to pull the cash out. So it was kind of great timing. I had sold Wollongong, but I also had cash that I could pull out of the second deal, the second build that I'd just done just then. Yep. So I kind of went through the process at the same time of kind of pulling the cash out. Plus I had the money left over from the sale. And this is where it was cool, because I was like, I realized, and I kind of found a different strategy, which at the time worked. Right now, it doesn't work so much, because yields in strong regional centers and hubs a lot of the time have been massively kind of chopped back because there's been so much price growth. So they kind of call it rental compression. Yield compression has happened, and those yields have come back because there's been so much price growth as well, even though there's been good rental growth as well, right? So essentially what I was able to do about it is I was able to really go out there and hunt these properties. What I started to realize was it was getting harder and harder to find a house that was going to produce 8% plus yield without doing something that was capital intensive, building a secondary dwelling or a dual lock or something like that. But I wanted to keep the pace going. I wanted to keep moving forward. I wanted to start scaling the portfolio. So I started to change tack and start looking for unit blocks. And unit blocks have always been one of those interesting things, those really interesting things. When the markets are hot, they're actually really hard to find good unit blocks because they're normally overpriced, and the yield compression, right? So the yields fall off, which in my opinion is most of the time the whole reason you do the deal. But for me, I was like, I want to find a unit block that I can individually title, because I knew that I could, when I individually titled them, I should be able to create enough equity there by making them on their own titles that I can pull that equity out.
Yep.
But not only that, I wanted something that had a bit of a twist as well, something I could go and renovate. Because I'm like, if I'm doing this job that I kind of hate, that I make enough money to be able to go do these things, I want all these different levers, and I want to be able to utilize a job like that where I can work hard, get in front, then bang, go take 2 weeks off, go travel, go do a reno. Right?
You wanted multiple strategies that you could implement.
I wanted to layer strategies. Exactly, man. The one thing was, when I was looking at these areas at the time, I wasn't confident in growth. I was like, all right, I'm going to be foregoing growth for this strategy. But as long as I can pull all my equity back out and I can create a really good positive cash flow off them, I don't really care. I'll forego the growth for that side of things.
Can I hold you on that? Because that's a really important point, because sometimes people want to get both the cash flow and the growth. And sometimes you need to be very specific as to getting one. You're not going to get always, you're going to get both, right?
Yeah.
So you said you went without the growth, knowing that you wanted to get the yield initially.
In that time I did. These days, man, I always try and push, to do cash flow deals in strong growth locations, because I love the best of both worlds.
But it's an added bonus, isn't it?
Well, this deal turned into that anyway.
Yes.
So back then, being a little naive and just chasing what I needed, which was the yield and the equity back out and the positive cash flows. I had those, which obviously is the yield, but if I had those, I knew I could keep moving forward. So I started chasing the unit blocks. The funny thing about this story, guys, I bought this start of 2019, we're at the start of 2023, even at the start of 2022. So in a 3-year window, I wasn't predicting growth on these. In a 3-year window, they've more than doubled.
Wow.
So it was crazy on that front, even in itself. But to run through the deal, I was hunting unit blocks. I'm going to cut it down a bit because I know we're going over time here. And I'm
Give
going
us
to get
high
to the
level.
point. Searching the whole of Australia for unit blocks, trying to find really good, strong regional submarkets that I can go find a good, solid block that has all those different upsides that I'm looking for. But I knew I had to go regional because it was the only place I was going to be able to find the yield. And I wanted to stay population 20,000 plus because I knew the banks would lend to me. I was trying to look for only up to a 4-pack of units because I knew with the lender that I'd been approved with, I could go 4-pack and stay with resi funding, which would keep my LVR, I could have it a little bit higher, could keep it at 80%. And for 2, my interest rate was going to be lower.
Correct.
Perfect. So I ended up in a big, strong regional South Australian market that I realized there was a couple of opportunities here if I could negotiate properties down to the right price. I got on the ground. The funniest thing about this story, in my mind, was I remember, because it was around my birthday, I would have been going on 29, and it was in late Jan. Because I remember if I drove down this thing, because I was in Sydney at the time, right? It was about a 14-hour, 15-hour drive, whatever I was saying, pretty well anywhere in South Australia, down along the south coast, sort of, the coastline of South Australia. And so I drove down, it was late Jan. This is back in drought days as well, before the drought was broken and all the rest of it. And man, it was boiling hot. I was driving down the Triton. I bought the Triton with cash at this point. This is the time where I bought it at that time. This is the first road trip. Yeah, man. First road trip I'd gone on by myself, just sending it in this thing. I left first thing in the morning and man, it was like 38 degrees. And the funniest thing, I just remember I was stripped off and I'm driving in my undies, just sweating bullets in this thing, just driving along the freeways. I was just like, man, this is cooked, like how hot this was.
Was there no AC in the Tritons back then?
AC, man, but I'm a tight ass. I didn't want to drag fuel, man. I had a 14-hour drive.
Wasn't Tuzzy in the car too?
Nah, that was for the Renault. She came. Oh no, she came. I had to kick her out because she couldn't come with me. She wasn't my Renault partner on that one. But that's actually funny because this is the block that we renovated when she was in the car. But nah, I mean, I drove all the way down. I did about half of it in my undies because it was literally 38 degrees. By the time we hit about 11 a.m., it was like 30. It was like 36. I hit 40. I had photos on my phone when I got there in the 40s, like 43 or 44 or something. It was that hot, full on crazy heat wave.
Can you imagine Sammy Gordon arriving in a regional town in his undies, just getting out in the heart of town, grabbing his latte?
Oh man, it was funny. It was funny. You know what? I'm all good with saying the location now because the market's gone ballistic. We're not buying there anymore, right? So the location was Mount Gambier down in the south, and Mount Gambier is very strategically positioned halfway between Adelaide and Melbourne. And the funny thing is, they have this huge, and it's actually amazing, this huge blue lake. If you ever do the drive between two of you, Great Ocean Road, have a look at Mount Gambier. Go look at the blue lake. It's freaking enormous, huge blue lake. And I get there, and I walk into the real estate agent's office because I was getting there for I can't even remember exact things that I was doing, but it was stinking hot. And I walked in, or I might have caught an inspection right at the end of the day when I got there. I can't even remember the exact story. It was so bloody long ago. And I walked in and I go, we were talking, and they were talking about the blue lake. And I go, it's so bloody hot. And I go, how do you get down there to go for a swim? And they just all stop and just turn and stare at me. They go, what do you mean? And I was like, mate, it's fucking 40 degrees. I'm sweating bullets here. I drove half this trip in my undies. I'm that bloody hot. I want to go for a swim. And they go, you want to go for a swim, mate? Drive 20 minutes south of Port McDonald, whatever the hell it is, just go for a swim down there. What's wrong with the lake? The lake looks beautiful. Because it's our drinking water, mate. It's our water supply. This guy's like, full rest. Relax, bro. I didn't realize, man.
Yeah, they take it very, very sensitive.
Very sensitively. And I remember because I was in this office and there were tenants there that were signing the lease off saying, you don't swim in my lake, mate. I drink out of that. And
there was no deals from that real estate agent then, ladies and gentlemen. No off-market opportunities from there.
Actually wasn't. I didn't do any deals with that bloke. Or the tenant. Oh man!
So you've been in town for 5 minutes. You're a marked man already.
I'm about to get out. I had to go stay down at the beach down south, 20 minutes out of town because the locals were hunting for me. Anyway, got in there late that night because that was when it was, right? And then I've crashed out and I've got up in the morning and I've gone and met this agent. He was actually a legend, but I don't know. Probably shouldn't put his name out there or whatever. But I went and met this agent and he was an absolute legend. And I met him there at 9 o'clock in the morning. And and this was on market at the time, but it was quite highly priced. You probably see a bit of a obviously pattern here of finding things that are highly priced. But I also knew like if I could get it for the right money and negotiate him down a bit, that it would be a great deal. It was listed from memory 420, 440, something like that. I knew if I could buy it under 400, it was a good deal. Under 380 was a great deal. This is a 4-pack of units, right? So this was pretty cool. I think it was 440 because I'm pretty sure I dropped a 350k offer on it from memory. Like I just went hard. He's like, "Oh, mate."
So you've made good friends with this guy
for
goes, 5
mate,
minutes.
I thought you were me, mate. That's actually what he said. He said, "Oh, mate, I thought you were my mate. Are you kidding me, man? Like, 350, it's a 440." I just said, "Mate, I don't have that much. Say, like I'm not." Because I shave my head. I don't shave my head, but when I give myself a haircut, I look pretty young, so I can normally play that I'm in my early 20s or something. You wouldn't be able to do that, but I do.
That's a good one. I'll give you that one. That was a pretty good one.
Thanks, mate. You normally set yourself up, but I set you up on that one. Anyway. So he's let me get away with it. We've had a bit of a laugh. And man, so like I was negotiating when we went through it and everything, and then there was the rear unit that he couldn't get me back through, and we're kind of like, because I was talking to him about it at that time, he was having a laugh with me about it. He knew I was just having a crack, and then the back tenants turned up, and we actually went through because it was funny because I'd been through the front three, I'd given the notice, but the back one's like, "Oh, you got to wait till we get back," because I had a dog, right? And I got let in there, and we went walking through, and I was like, "Oh shit!" He's like, "What?" And I go, "This one's a 3-better." He's like, "Oh, yeah, this is the big one." He goes, "Back in the day, you might know this from lineage, but Italians, there was a big Italian community down there back in the day." Of course. Apparently what they used to do was all the old Italians, they'd buy all these old blocks, right? The blocks of dirt, and they'd keep construction materials on the side in their back shed. They'd have a bit of leftover, or they'd order a bit extra from a build, and they'd go put it in there, and then they'd go build these unit blocks for free, right? They'd
the beginnings of the mafia in Mount Gambier.
Mount Gambier, that's where it was all at.
The Castellucci family.
But that's what they do, right? So they'd build the 3 at the front as rentals, and then they build themselves a 2-bedders at the front, and then they build a 3-bedder at the back, 3x1 at the back.
Genius.
With a lock-up garage and a yard and stuff. They were awesome. I've walked through, I go, "Mate, this one's pretty good." He goes, "Yeah, that's what I told you. Don't give me a 350 bullshit." I was laughing. I go, "I'll give you a little bit. I'll give you an extra 5 for this one." He's like, "Oh, mate, no chance. You're dreaming." And anyway, after a bit of backwards and forwards, and I just realised like this was a kicker, man, because I don't think he realised he'd listed it as a 8x4x4. So like 4 2x1s, but this one was like a large, like all the others were probably like 70 squares. This thing was like 100 square meter 3x1. Like it was pretty decent for a unit around there at that sort of time. So yeah, man, it was we kind of got through there and went through it all. And anyway, cut a long story short, I had a great time with him. Actually met a lot of agents while I was there, and there were some really good people there. Like I actually have a bit of a affection for that town. It's a nice place, you know. And yeah, man. Anyway, long story short, negotiated hard on this thing, went big time. Drew a counter at the 400, kept working him. And I just said, I said, man, the reason I started at 350 is because like 360 is all I got. And I said, man, like I'm like tapped at that. So it's literally like all I got. And he goes, "Why'd you come to me then? Like you can't afford this thing." And I said, "I know, man, but I knew it'd been on the market for a while. All the units are shit. They're in shit condition. They need work." So yeah, the gutters were falling down. And yeah, man, I knew I could renovate those units pretty cheap, each one. So I was kind of looking at them going, because I knew what I'd renovated the house for up in Brizzy. I knew what I could do, and you could buy a pretty cheap, cabinetry and everything, kitchens. So I could do. I was looking at these things, going, I could probably do a full kitchen, tighten the bathrooms up, do a full kitchen replacement, repaint, refloors, knock these things over for probably like $6-7 grand each. So I was looking at it going, shit. And then if they were individually titled at the back end, they were kind of worth around. They would have been worth around 120, 130 a pop, each. Right? Yep. Yeah, each. So there's definitely a bit of value in there on that end. He sent me the contract to sign, and he goes, "Mate, just submit it on paper at the 360, and let's just see how you go." He goes, "I'm going to submit it." He goes, "But like, man, you're probably going to need to come up like at least 20 or 30. He goes, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get him off the 400, but we need this, right? We need somewhere in that sort of ballpark. Let's get on paper. Let's have a crack." Okay. So kicker number 1, rear unit was a 3-better. Have a wild guess, mate, what kicker number 2 is. You probably don't know too much about uniblocks, which is just because you haven't come too much into your sphere. Have a wild guess what the second kicker was.
Already in individually titled.
Have I said that to you before?
No.
They were already individually titled.
Mate, the Italians are smart.
This is in your lineage. That's how you know. You own that one. So I should check back through the history.
Mate,
are you a different name? Mifrandia.
Coglione. You can call me Don.
Okay, all right. Don Ham. So
they were already individually titled.
Already individually titled. So I sent it to my conveyancer. My conveyancer rang me. This is a dude that I'd used for the two in Adelaide back when I bought it. And he goes, you got this for 360. I go, no, I'm just submitting it 360. And he goes, they're already individually titled. Are you buying them one line? Or are you buying them like? I go, what do you mean? And he told me, I didn't know what it was at the time because I never really. Oh, sorry, I did know what it was, but I didn't know that they could sell 4 in one line. And I don't think the agent knew either.
So you can. So just for people, because I don't understand that either. So if they're individually titled, you can sell them all togetger as one.
You can sell them however you want.
He could have sold them individually.
He could have sold all 4 individually. He could have sold, 2 together, 2 for one, 1 for one, whatever.
So it's fair to say this one hasn't traded hands a lot because it sounds like someone had owned it forever.
He bought it like at the peak of the last boom. So he'd kind of bought it at the peak of the last boom. He was going through a divorce and he just kind of had to get rid of it. And so long story short again, like he sat on this thing but I knew there was massive value now because I'd called council, I'd spoken to them about individually titling them. And they go, if it's brick to the roof, and a lot of them around there were limestone. It's a big limestone mining area back there back in the day. So this was limestone to the bloody roof. And they go, if they're limestone to the roof or if they're brick to the roof, then you can title them pretty easy. And it's around about $5 or $6 per property to title them.
Yep.
I was like, oh, that's pretty good. It's pretty reasonable. But they were a cheaper end product, so I knew that, right? But they go, if they're not, and you have to put the stuff in the roof to kind of do it, they're like, that's where your cost is going to go because it has to be fire rated, like gyp rocking and stuff in the middle. Now, this one wasn't brick to the roof. He'd already fire rated the gyp rocking. He'd already done the fire rated gyp rock in the roof. And I remember getting up in there and looking at it, and I didn't say it to him, but I was like, why? Like, why is that gyp rock? Like, it's bricked and everything. Like, why is this thing not bricked to the roof? It didn't make sense to me. And then I spoke to him about it and I explained it. He goes, yeah, that'd be fire rated gyp rock that they would have in. Oh no, I can't remember if it was him or if it was a building in Pespec or whatever it was at the time. But I was like, it was already individually titled, so that was the main thing, right? That was the big thing.
It's a massive win.
Man, that's like easy $15,000 extra per unit that was already like minimum, just in terms of cost of like titling it and the works of being done of getting it done. So yeah, man, it was kind of nuts like that was already done and already part of the dwelling. So I started getting FOMO about because I was like, fuck, like I want this thing now. Yeah, I want this.
You can see
now.
the value. You were tempted to pay more.
No. Well, yes, I was tempted, but what I did, because he'd said to me, he goes, just submit it on paper. And then he rang me, he goes, mate, it's been a day, like, what are you going on? And because I've been going backwards and forwards with the solicitor, and I go, yeah, no worries, man, no worries. So I sent it back at the 360, and the guy came down to 390, and I was just like he countersigned at 390, and he goes, mate, this is a great deal, you got to do it. And I just kept playing my card, man, I don't have the money, like, let me see what I can do, let's see what I could get. And then I'd call him back a few days later, I go, man, like, I can't get it from my parents. So, just like, I'd never ask him for it, but like, I was just playing that card sort of thing. I think the wife must have been putting some heat on this seller because they wanted us to split and kind of get out of everything. So he calls me back a few days at the end of that week because I'd been there for a few days. I'd come back, and this was kind of the following week, and he's called me end of the week, and he goes, mate, he's come down to 380, and he goes, but mate, that's his bottom dollar. He's told me don't come back unless this young fella comes to 380. Otherwise, just leave it on the market. I don't want to hear anything. Okay, and I was like, and I just said, mate, I don't have it.
So you definitely didn't have it though?
No, I did. I had borrowing at like 500.
Gee, this is the
But man, it had been a week, man. It had been a week, and like nothing else. I knew I needed to make the money, but I knew I had to make the money, and I'd been rushed on other deals before that I wish I'd held out a little bit longer on, right? On some different things.
And you didn't have to do the deal. I mean, I know you needed the numbers, but you weren't desperate for it, right? So you could hold out a little bit?
I could. I was pretty desperate. I really wanted this thing. I knew it was a great deal, but I was like, I was very nervously saying, no, I have no more. But you kind of got to sometimes stick to your guns, like as much as you can. I left it for the weekend. He called me on the Monday and he said to me, he goes, mate, someone else has called me over the weekend, coming down from Sydney to have a look. And I was like, hey, come on, man, please help me on this thing. I know. And he's like, mate, I want you to buy this thing. You're a top bloke. I know you're just having a crack as a young fella just to get amongst it and everything. He goes, you need to give me something like, I'm going to try and close this thing out for you today before this guy comes in. He said he's going to come down end of the week. You need to give me something to try and close this out. And I go, mate, what about if I can get you $1,000 extra per unit? He goes, mate, $1,000. I said, man, I'm literally like, I'd have to like scrounge $1,000 from each of my mates just to borrow. Like, this is, got to do it. You got to say what you got to say to these sort of things. But I was trying to, I needed the cash out of this thing, man, you know? And this is where I've learned negotiating along a lot of different deals, but this was like really holding my nerve because I didn't know if there actually was another buyer or not.
Yes.
You know, it was a very easy way for him to try and get up. And a lot of people folded in that situation.
But did you ever think, looking bigger picture, I mean, an extra 10 grand, would that have broken the deal? I mean, there was still seemed like you were making a lot of savings on individually titled and so forth. So you could have theoretically, the numbers would have stacked up still. Or was it just more of a principle that you wanted to try and get the best possible deal? Yeah,
it's one of the best possible deal, man. And at the time as well, like they were probably worth, each of the two bettors in their current nick were probably like, they were probably like 105, 110 grand a pop. The three better was probably 115, 120. They weren't that much. There wasn't that much in them. It was okay.
Yeah.
But it wasn't amazing, you know. It was okay, but it wasn't amazing. And that's why like around 400 would have been like, make a little bit of a discount, maybe 20 grand on the way into the deal. Although with the three better, you may be making 30 grand or something like that. I mean, I needed more than 30 grand on a 400K deal at that time. So yeah, man, I was pushing. And this is where we kind of got to this little bit of a standoff.
The
stalemate. You're a bit stale, mate. Sorry, I don't know if that was a good one. Anyway, you're laughing. I'll take it. Anyway, sorry, bro. I was there. Gave him the extra $1,000.
You put it in contract. Yeah,
I the contract. 364. He's called me up and he goes, mate, I don't believe it. You got a Mount Gambier bargain, you have. He's just signed off on it. And mate, I was pumping, I was so excited. I was just, I was so happy, man. Because I knew that was the first time I'd not the first time, because I had the block of dirt. I'd done all these other things, but this is where I started buying more repetitively. Like I was buying more consistently. And I knew that I was getting some gold in some of these deals.
So 440 was the asking.
Yeah.
You said 400 might have been a little bit of a deal originally from
You still make a little bit on it, depending on the investor who would have bought it.
360.
Yep.
Was that your first offer? No,
350.
350.
Yeah.
So he's come
That's
from 440.
He laughed me out of the mount. He's laughed me out of the mount. He's thrown me in the blue lake at that one.
And some people could get really uncomfortable with that.
Yes.
So I love your negotiation tactics. I really do. And holding your nerve. But let me ask you this, Mr. Sammy Gordon.
Ask me.
Would you have, like if you missed that deal.
Yes.
Did you ever think about that by holding too tight? Like at what point for people listening out there, because that's a cracker and that's not always going to happen, but sometimes you're going to miss out.
And people have got to remember this was early 2019.
Tough environment.
Well, the new election was coming up. The federal election was coming up in I think it was in March. The market was pretty dead. It was pretty flat. So it wasn't like I wouldn't negotiate like that now at that huge discount, right? At 380, it still would have been a stonker, right? It would have been an absolute cracker. Absolutely. So I still would have bought it at that in this market. But back then, I knew I had that little bit more, or I had that little bit more kind of time. But that was also probably why he came down to 380, because the market was a little bit more negotiable. In this market, probably you would be working as hard as I did to get 364, probably to get the 380. You know, in this sort of market. For a comparable deal now.
Yes.
Well, that's obviously worth a lot
Understanding
more now.
also as a motivated seller. So you really knew, I love it how you did your numbers and you really knew your due diligence on what you needed.
Yep.
What was the non-negotiable. You knew a lot about, you built the relationship.
Yep.
And you actually stood your ground.
Yeah.
There's some real key tips for people looking to negotiate on a deal.
Man, 100%. It was good, eh? Like I really, I'm proud of that one. Like
that's a cracker.
That was a cracker. And
what would that be worth now? Did you say double?
Yeah, so that would be worth over 800 now. You'd be somewhere in the vicinity because they're individually titled. I would take them to market individually.
Yes.
You'd get between 800 to 850 if you sold them all off.
Yeah, awesome. And the yields?
So they're all renting circa low twos for the two bettors, and then the three bettors up in the high twos. Oh, actually, it might be 300 now. So it's pretty good. I think actually I can't remember 100%.
Absolute cracker.
Could be close to $1,000 in the 900s. I think it is per week on that. So yeah, man, you're pretty well at like a 15% yield.
So right there, you've ticked off 4 properties because there are individually titled.
Yeah.
You ticked off 4 properties. Now, some people would say to you, why would you do 4 individual properties that if you look at that price point, I mean, 365, what's that, 90 grand or something roughly?
91K a pop. Yeah, 364. Yeah, it was literally 91K.
There are some people out there that would say Sammy Gordon loves binging on the cheap properties. 91 grand. I'd rather own one property for around the 400.
Yep.
For those people out there that are thinking, nah, I don't want to own any of those crappy little shitty things in the Mount Gambier.
In the Mount.
And we love people from Mount Gambier. And you love
literally, man, I love it. It's a great place.
Well, you can't be, he's not welcome back because he swam in the lake.
Nah, but I did the renos now. I've made mates with all of them. They came swam with me. I set a new precedence. Not really.
So what would you say to those people that are questioning whether or not this stack up?
And
like,
I've had it a little bit before, right? Of people saying, oh man, like, you know, and obviously being transparent, I'm very transparent with my portfolio going through a lot of these, but like Adelaide, you know, those ones now that I paid 150, 170 for 7 years ago, now they're worth in the mid threes, right? So they've had a great growth run. Their rents have gone up by $100 plus a week. And with these ones, but this is where it comes down to each individual person's circumstances. Like I've done a podcast before on a different platform that was specifically on this deal and everything I did with this deal and the renovation and individually titling and refinancing it back out and everything. And I remember someone commenting once literally saying what you said, I'd prefer, you know, one great property at 400 than these 4 units or whatever. And it's like, man, you have no idea what scenario I was in at that point. So I didn't have a huge amount of borrowing. Yeah, I had a little bit more in the tank, but like negotiated a great deal. There was massive fat in the deal. When I put in, and I renovated each of these units for around about, it was between $5,000 to $7,000 depending on the unit and what needed to be done. But between $5,000 to $7,000 per unit, added another about $20K per unit when I did those deals. Man, when I was finished, I'd put all in around about $100,000 into that deal or so, something like that. I can't remember exactly. Maybe with the renos, maybe 120, something like that. I remember when I refied it back out, what I'd put into it when I did the revals post-reno. I went down there. It wasn't the trip that Tazi went on. She sat, there's my big German Shepherd for you guys that I know. She sat in the car. She wanted to come. I had all my tools in there. I had the ute loaded up. But I had my good mate, Matty Sads. Big Sads. He came down with me and we renovated in the Stinkin' Eat when we did that one. But yeah, man, we did it for very cheap, and I knew there was the fat in that deal especially when I did the renovations. So there was already the fat in it on the way in. There was a fat in it from the already being individually titled, and then the fat in it from doing the renovation as well. So I was like, you know, old mate going and saying that, but then when they all finished, they were all renting for over $200 a week each. They were around about the $200 a week each on the dime for those 2-bedders. The 3-bedder was at about $250. So I was getting like circa $850 a week rent on a deal that cost me less than $400. So I'm at around about an 11% yield.
Yeah, wow.
And I pulled out all my capital plus around about $30K as an equity release when I refied them all off onto the different loans when I did it. I got them all refied back out, pulled all that cash back out. Man, I can't remember the exact numbers at the time, but somewhere in the low 20, it was like 21, 22 and change, $1,000 per year net passive, and I'd pulled all my capital back out. So, mate, go show me how you do that on a standard, standard 400K deal and get that sort of result. And when I was in my mid late 20s, whatever it was, and that deal ticked every box of what I needed within the portfolio to be able to keep moving. So, like, deals are always relevant to where you are in your time frame. You know, there's like, Harry Triggerboff wouldn't go and do that deal. But when he started, a deal like that probably would have helped set the foundations and build the foundations of what he would have done. So there's always different levels of deals that people would do.
But can I say, that deal right now, even today, 99% of investors would do that every day of the week. You'd do 50 of them.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers itself. I mean, who would want to...
Pull the cash back out, fix your rate.
That's a no-brainer.
Fix your rate, be over 20 grand a year passive, net passive.
So I think it's quite an ignorant thing for some people to... And this is a really important point, is that there's so many different strategies you can adopt, but don't get seduced with your own ego into thinking a higher price property or one property on its own is going to be a better deal, because we're not looking at what is the best property. We are looking at what is the best investment.
Yes.
And either the return of cash or the equity, and this ticks all of them.
Yeah, man.
So this is a slam dunk.
Man, this is where I think like people, they need to realize like where you're at in your portfolio and your strategy and what you're doing. It's very specific to you. And like I said, this may not suit a Harry Triggerboff, but this would suit most investors starting out in their first 10 deals, because pull the cash out, you're in like really, if I'd actually looked at it, the market hadn't grown for about 15 years. It was massively undervalued.
Yeah.
It was sub 1% vacancy rate. The deal, like you do the deal, and all right, even if you paid market value and hadn't renovated it, you were probably in the 8 or 9% yield, even just on that sense.
Yep.
But you're doing all these different things, like to get that great result in the bag. It's a no-brainer to go and bang out a deal like this.
Mate, that's an absolute cracker, that deal. I love that deal.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you, Jimmy.
So, and it's quite a complex strategy, would you say, in terms of for people when they're starting out? You don't want to be executing something like this.
Oh, you wouldn't do this on your
off the
first
rank.
deal. Nah, you'd probably make a mistake on it. And it would have been more complex and more complicated if it wasn't already individually titled.
Yes.
That was the huge kicker on this deal, right? And so if it had been more complex, more complicated than that, then yeah, it would have been harder. If that had.
Because a lot of people say when they're looking for cash flow, especially when they're starting out, I want to buy a block of units. And it's like, well, it's actually not. You want to do your time a little bit. So you're biting off a bit more than you can chew.
We will run through this. We've got a manufactured cash flow deal podcast coming up soon, guys.
We do.
And we're going to run through unit blocks because there are massive pitfalls that a lot of people don't realize with unit blocks. And especially in today's market and current market, yields like that and returns like that are hard to kind of get. So, because you got to remember, it was a very different time in the market and whatnot too. But what I'll do is we're going to run through everything on that and kind of the mistakes and the pitfalls and the things that people overlook when it comes to things like unit blocks as well that we'll cover off when we do that manufactured cash flow episode.
Sammy Gordon. We've just gone. You finally got there. I mean, you've taken bloody long enough to get there, but I think
I revived you, 3,000-year-old man. I was surprised your heart could take
You actually nearly put me to sleep actually for a few moments there, but I'm back. I am back. Thank you very much.
Old people probably need a little bit more sleep. What are you sleeping about? Oh, I guess we've gone over the hour. You normally sleep. You're like a koala. You sleep for 23 hours a day. You're awake for an hour.
What do I do for the other parts?
Well, you normally do. You sit there for an hour and let me talk because you don't bring much value.
So should we recap? Should we recap on this, Sammy boy? Because I've taken a few notes of some of your hot tips,
mate. But hot tip of the potty.
Just on this, where to from here? Actually, also for people because we've got this takes us up to what is it, number 10?
This is 11.
This is 11.
Yeah.
So we've hit 11.
Yes.
Now, when people are looking at and I highly recommend you watch the.
So I've hit double digs.
You have the double digi.
The double digs like a didgeridoo.
So what do you do now? Should we be going through your portfolio and escalating the 11 to 20, or should we just recap? Or is it mainly this part? Because this is the real.
This is the nuts and bolts of what most people love to really hear about.
Yeah.
But we will definitely in the next ones, we've got a few more deals that kind of come into it before things kind of, ramp in a really big way. And I start doing low doc lending and pushing things really hard.
Escalation.
Like
we'll do one of that.
Yeah. I reckon we've probably got one more ep of what, what was done within the portfolio, especially on like standard sort of PAYG sort of lending as well.
Yep.
Before I turn to kind of trust structures. Low doc lending and trust structures, which you pay significantly higher interest rate for, but it gives you, borrowing capacity to the moon sort of thing.
So give us the finale of where you were in your portfolio at the end of this 11th property. So what are we sitting number wise?
Okay, so we're sitting at 11 now. All right, I wrote these down because it is a lot to kind of run through and remember, and it was bloody a while ago.
Absolutely.
So obviously deal number 1, gone, sold, 275 purchase,
out,
525 sale price. Beautiful, gone. Now the next deal, which we would obviously call number 1 in the portfolio from now, is that the first build that I did. Now obviously purchase price on that one at the time 355K all in. The value at this point in around about that 2017 would have been around 750K. So she's more than doubled.
Yeah, wow.
The value of that today, for everyone listening, would be around about 1.2, 1.3 million.
Gee, that's not bad, is it?
And I bought that about 10 years ago. Bought and developed that about 10 years ago. But the market is essentially, it doubled and then it's gone reasonably close to doubling again. Yeah. So that's a good deal. First Adelaide deal at 155. At the time where we were back then, would have been around about 200K value. That today would be worth about 350. So that's more than doubled in a 7-year window.
The 2 Ipswich properties?
Second Adelaide deal, 177K purchase. That would be at this point in time when we're in 2017 about 220. Obviously Adelaide's had a great run the last couple of years. That now would be worth about 370. So you'd be up a solid 200K on purchase or pretty close to that in the last 7 years, which is more than doubling once again. The fourth deal in the portfolio at this point is Brizzy, the first Brizzy one out in Churchill. 212K purchase. At this point in time, 2017, be worth about 280K. In today's dollars, I have built a secondary dwelling on that since then for in the low 100s. So my total in on that deal would be sub 350, it'd probably be around about 330, 340. The value on that right now would be 6 to 650. And that rents are about 750 a week combined. I hope this isn't going over everyone's heads.
No. They can re-listen to this.
Yeah, beautiful. Then the second Ipswich one, out of Silkstone as well, 212, again, 212 purchase. At this time as well, would have been worth around about that 270K mark. That today would be worth around about 400. So not quite doubled, but pretty close to it. Mm-hmm. Then we round out into today's properties and the ones we've run through today.
Yep.
You've got the first build, the first one we got into, the dual lock one, 550, as you correctly pointed out, would have been around about that 550K mark. Value at the time, as said, was around about the $800,000. Value of that today, now with the dual lock built, would be around about circa 1.5 mil. So that's been pretty good. Sorry, I did forget to throw the build price in on top of that. So that would have cost me around about $750, so another $200,000 to complete that the auxiliary. Yep. The dual occupancy build on that. So you're in for around $750. So that's doubled, and I settled on that in 2017. So you're literally talking a five in a little bit year window for that to double, and the rent on that is circa $1,300 a week on 2 brand new builds. That's quite nice. And then obviously you've got the 8, 9, 10, 11 being the first deal in the Mount, first unit block in the portfolio as well. 364K purchase, 91K a unit. At the time when it was finished, I did the renos. I reckon that would have been worth around about 490. So with the renos and everything as well, my cost base probably would have gone up to around about 380, 390. Would have been worth about 490, 500,000. But I was able to pull all my capital back out of the deal when I went and did the refinance on that. And like I said before, that would now be valuing between about 800 to 850. You got about 200K value per unit at the front three. And then the big 3-bedder at the back would be worth circa 250K. But they have all been renovated, and the rent on that is in the 900s a week as well. So for a bit of a recap on that, I hope everyone kind of caught that as I ran through it all. But total in right at this point, it is almost 2 mil on the dot. So in terms of all purchase prices, you're at about call it around about 2,050,000. My values at this point is around about 3 million, just over 3 million as well. So you're around about pretty close to that 3,050,000. So at this point in time, after circa 8 years of investing, I've had a lot of stops, a lot of starts, a lot of mistakes, a lot of wins. We're sitting at around about $1 million kind of profit made in terms of net equity across the portfolio in that time frame. Today's value of that portfolio, so it was 3 mil then. Obviously, we've had a really good run of growth the last couple of years, especially like Brizzy, Adelaide, even those Highlands builds and the Mount, the unit block, the Mount, they've all had exceptional run in the last couple of years as well. So that portfolio that I acquired for 2 mil all up, that would be worth circa five. I've got down here in terms of my notes when I ran through all the vals, in my opinion, 5.24 million. Wow. So you're literally at around about 160% growth on that so far.
I mean, I know you just glazed over those numbers, but for people listening, that is pretty phenomenal. And if you want to listen back over to this podcast, it's pretty phenomenal.
We might have to split this into 2 episodes. We're going like an hour. And 40.
I think we should. I was thinking that as you're waffling on, actually, to be honest. But I
just got lost in your
in my eyes,
in your beard.
Thank you.
It's in your beard. There are crumbs in it.
I was actually pointing when you were saying that. It took 8 years.
Yes.
To achieve this, right?
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, when they're looking at something like this, and it just always, when we talk about portfolios and stuff, it always ceases to, it surprises and reinforces how long things take initially, inevitably, for a lot of people, especially when you're starting out and you're starting out with a low capital base, which is the majority of people, let's face it, and just the patience you need. So a lot of people don't want to put in those 8 years, and there's a lot of blood, sweat and tears, but from that 8-year period, and when we look at where we are, we went 1 mil in net equity, but when we fast forward now, so to another, 7 years, 6 years, or whatever it is, 5 years, 6 years,
5, 6,
we've actually bumped up another 2 mil, 2.5 mil.
2.2 mil, yeah.
Which just goes to show the compounding value and the power of that. And just the understanding of patience, of thinking, you don't feel like you're getting anywhere and it doesn't look like as much.
Yep.
But if you give it time and be patient and understand, you do the right things, it will take care of itself, and you will be in a much better position because you're exposed to the market. And if you've got the right deals, you will benefit. So that's I mean, that is phenomenal.
It's a bit of gold there, Jimmy. Well done, mate. I like the rap.
I absolutely love it. I did have a couple of other key things that I took away from you.
Can I say one thing on that, though? That is super important. Like, the way I build people's portfolios these days, I build them a lot quicker than what I did for myself back then, because I had a lot of mistakes. I was going through, I had different things. But you can build a portfolio quicker than that. But you are right. And if you hit those ceilings where you might hit a serviceability wall, but we did it intentionally to build out a certain portfolio, hit a serviceability wall, and you might need to wait 12 months and then you sell, but then you could ramp up in a big way. That sometimes is a strategy itself, but you've got to have a bit of patience around these different things. And that compounding effect of, you're exactly right, man, like that initial 10, 11 deals that we kind of did in terms of properties, you look at the values and the growth and everything has kind of come through on that as well. That's the power of what you can really do here with this. So it's an awesome thing, you know?
Mate, I thanks for sharing that. I know there was a lot of challenges, and we spoke about that in the earlier on. That might be in the previous podcast now. We're going to split it into. But I took a few key things, if you don't mind me sharing.
Let's do it.
Some of the things that I really took from you, first of all, is purchase when you can and don't wait. Because I know we often have people saying, "Why should I wait? Should I wait out?" And you hit it on the head at the start when you missed the serviceability, because when interest rates moved, you could have bought something, but you missed it and you were priced out.
Yes.
How often does that happen to people? All the time.
Yeah, all the time, of course.
So if you have the opportunity to purchase, get in.
Yeah, you'd be very wary of waiting, because you never know what happens in life and whatnot. There's always places worth pulling the trigger. If you've got borrowing capacity and you got the capital, you want to put it in the market and start growing, because there is always a location worth investing
100%.
in, and always a deal worth 100%. Investing in.
The next point I took, summary, don't be afraid to sell. Goes against everything that probably a lot of people say. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, you need to sell at certain points in order to keep your portfolio moving. But that's a cracker. Buying and selling from different agents.
Don't glaze over that one too quick. That is a big one. I know we're going to get. I know we're going to get into that, but I'm just trying to recap, because that's huge, man. Huge exit strategy, selling at the right time, cashing out as you build along and build this portfolio. It is supremely important.
It is.
To be building this.
Tommy's made a quote of the day out of that.
Quote of the day,
because you went pretty nuts. You were thrashing in the shallows on that one. I tell you,
it was a little backflips.
I could see the twitch in your eye. It was like a little.
No one's ever seen a bull shark do a worm, but it performed. It happened.
Pretty much.
The bull shark worms.
And tying in with selling, you don't want to be buying and selling from the same agent. So that is a really important point, because obviously you want to be
very rarely. Yeah, yes, very rarely.
Yes, very important point. Make a decision. That was the one. Make a decision, especially the hard ones. Because there was a certain point in your story that you decided to go all in, and there was certain decisions you made along the road, especially the hard ones. And if people are looking at their portfolio, especially when you sold Wollongong, you made that really tough decision.
Yep.
If you didn't do that, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
And you would have been stuck with that property that be, what, 800 grand now? So for people listening out there, and if you're looking at your portfolio, it wouldn't be 800,
it'd be in the sixes. That's the thing.
600, even that. Cost Jesus.
Yeah, it's nothing.
So make a decision. If you're thinking about your own portfolio and there's a couple of tough things you need to do, have a call with someone, 100%. Chat it out. And the other one I did mention.
Should we put? So Jimmy's number, guys, is 04. He wants to give you a call if you need to have a chat. 0478.
Yeah. You got the first two digits right.
Yeah.
Find someone who will push you to get better results.
Yes.
If that's your broker or your accountant. I know you set up your trust, you had your broker in the right. So they were some of the key big things that I took. And the last one, and this might be a good finale, sometimes you got to go all in. And I love that. When you went all in, even the back wheels, you put them in.
Mate.
You went all in.
All in.
And obviously it's proven that you went all in, you've got the results in your own portfolio. And I know the first 11, I can see so many different strategies that you've adopted, which is awesome. But for people out there that are thinking, I want to get a 40 property portfolio, or even I want to get 5 properties, there's so many nuggets of wisdom that you've dished out. And I want people to really think about what you've said.
Can I touch on that for 1 sec?
Yes.
So one of the huge points around that and going all in, sometimes if you commit for 2 or 3 years or even a year, commit hard for 1, 2, 3 years, just do that. Even if you have to get your partner on board, look, love, I need you to back me. I know we live in the Mount, things are good, but
we don't swim in the lake.
We don't swim in the lake. We get on the beach, but back me on this for, a year. 18 months, 2 years. Let me build this thing first, and then we'll do everything else you want to do in our life. But let me get to my 4 or 5 properties. Let me build that. Let me sit there, let it tick over in the background. And I guarantee you, even if you just commit for that, you'll probably get bitten by the bug and want to keep going and really build something big. And they'll probably get inspired and whatnot as well. But if you can do that, even if you just did that and you sat that there on the side and let it tick over and do its thing for the next 10 years, you're going to come back and you're probably going to be sitting on a $1 to $2 million equity gain on that. If you buy the right property in the right price at in the right location, you're going to be getting all that good stuff, right? But like, even if you just commit to it for that period, you go all in, even if it is just to set up the foundations till you hit a serviceability wall. Then we hit a serviceability wall, whatever. We'll take a time out until the right times to sell or reset, or I get a big pay increase or whatever. But like, if you commit in the early phases, this is where I see a lot of people make mistakes. They go, man, I just want to buy one property and I just want to let it go for 12, 24 months. I just want to let it go for 12 months, just see how it goes. If the results are what you say, great, we'll go again. Mate, if it was 12 months ago, I've done a million things since then. I've probably forgotten about you. You'll probably get caught up in life and all the rest of the sort of stuff. Like, and even if you're doing it by yourself, whatever, if you're going to do it, be very wary of being like, I'm just going to do one deal and I'm going to sit on it for a while, because once you lose the momentum, it's very hard to kind of bring it back. But if you can commit to it and you go, you know what, and that's, by the way, there's nothing wrong. If that's your game plan, you've got a more of a conservative nature, you just want to do one property a year, that's okay. But if you want to ramp it and you want to go hard, and in an 18, 24 month window, you want to require 3, 4, 5 properties, and then let it sit there and do its thing, the compounding effect, like you look at my portfolio, what I built off those shit boxes that no one else would touch, off those sorts of things, and what has been built and what they're worth in today's value, that's literally like it looks, it's a obviously it's a 13-year time frame since when I first started. But if you look at like what's actually been built in like those middle kind of 3 or 4 years, between say 2013, 2017, which the bulk of that portfolio was built. If you take Wollongong out of the equation, it was built then compared to where it is now. Literally, let's say you bought your first one in 2013, which was the Southern Highlands build, and just did to 2017, just had that portfolio, and then now you're in 2023 and you just parked it for 6 years. He's made $2.5 million.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, that
you just made $2.5 million. Show me the job. You make $2.5 million in 6 years, just sitting there on the side. I don't know. Too many guys are going to pay you that much to sit on the sides and do nothing. So it's the power of that and compounding and letting it do its thing and building it early and then letting it compound and build. There is no stronger strategy out there than at least getting that. Obviously, the stronger strategy is keep building on it. But even just setting that up to take care of and do its own thing. I know I harped on a little on it, but I can't stress the importance of that in getting that right.
Well, mate, I think you've absolutely nailed it. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up this 4,000-minute episode?
For how many years you've been in existence, I'm going to guess that you're probably right on that assumption.
I need to have a nap.
You need to have a nap anyway, you old silver dog. No, man, that's good. I'm happy with it, buddy. You happy with it?
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. And thanks for sharing a lot of that content that you did earlier on.
No worries, mate. Pleasure.
I know it was a challenging time.
Pleasure.
And swings and roundabouts, isn't it? The sliding door moment.
100%.
I mean, that opened up. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing now if it wasn't for that.
Nah, and even, so many different things. The thing happened with the BA side of things, but even like the Special Forces or soccer, all these different things, if they'd gone in the right... if they'd happened the right way of how I wanted it to back then, I wouldn't be in the spot I'm in now. And that's why, like, all your decisions and everything that happens to you, like, it either makes you or it breaks you, and you build off the back of that. And I look back, I'm almost like fortunate and thankful for everything that kind of happened. I wish I'd done different, like I wish different things had gone different ways for life experiences, but it's good, man. Everything's come out great.
It's funny though, because if those things didn't happen, then you wouldn't be exactly where you are now.
Yeah.
So we almost say, I'd love if it didn't.
Yeah. Oh, it wouldn't be. There's no chance. No chance.
So the challenges you went through, and for people out there, it is so important to understand that obstacle of going through and the discomfort and all the challenges and all the time you put in, there is a reward at the end of that.
Yes.
And if you do want to fast track your results, and there's no such thing as an easy win in terms of doing nothing, get rich quick, but you can save a lot of time by having someone guide you with the right mentorship. And obviously that's what we do at Australian Property Scout is
100%.
Getting people started right. So you're not wasting that period of time where you're really slugging it on your own. You're buying over market. You're not negotiating hard. You're getting the wrong yields. You're getting tapped out. So It's a no-brainer. So if you are out there listening and you want to get involved and you want to get a bit more help with your portfolio, Sammy boy, they should book in, don't you think?
100%, man. If you guys, even if you want a disco call and because Jimmy likes to dance while he's on the calls.
Yeah, I got 1 foot on the dance floor, but I've got 1 foot off. So I'm kind of dancing, but I'm not.
If you want any of that advice, guys, and you really want to reach out, whether it's advice or you want the help in building the portfolio, we are market leaders in this. We are. I'm proud to say we're exceptionally good at what we do in this space. If you want help with it, reach out. We're more than happy to help anyone and everyone in their journeys, wherever you are up to. So feel free to reach out. Go to www.australianpropertyscout.com.au, click the link, book in for a call, get your journey started. We'd love to help you. Jimmy, man, thank you very, very much once again for jumping on and sharing your many, 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 many years of wisdom.
Thank you.
Listeners.
Speaking of sharing, they should share this episode with a few of their friends.
Mate, that's a great point. You stole my thunder. I love it. Go on, mate. You want to go?
No, because you just kept on waffling. I thought, geez, eventually we're going to get to it.
Guys, like we say in all episodes when we get to the back end, if you took great value from this episode, you want to keep building your circle of influence. You want to send this out to people that you know that are maybe thinking about building a portfolio, or maybe they've gotten burnt by a BA and they never want to touch a property again.
Or anyone else, or a promoter, or marketing,
100%.
or a new house and land package deal.
Anyone burnt in property,
yes,
there's always a way back.
Heaps.
Anyone burning anything in life, there's always a way back and there's always a path forward. Maybe you know someone that's been down that path, or maybe you need someone that needs a kick in their ass and you found inspiration from what's been done, or the obstacles overcome, or the deals that were put together. Anyone that you think would take great value out of this podcast, we would massively appreciate you sharing this. We're trying to build a community of people that think in a like-minded way, that think like us, that want to invest like us, high achievers, no bullshit approach. So anyone that you think would take value, please share and kind of keep growing this thing for us as well. Now, guys, any questions you have or anything you want sent in for future Q&As, or any feedback you have on the potty as well, please, in the show notes, you literally just click in the show notes on whatever platform you're listening to. There is the email address on there. You click in that, you send in your email. Any questions you guys want answered, we're constantly gathering all these different questions, and we're going to be answering these things as we go. Obviously, for anyone that's a little bit older, maybe doesn't have email, you can go to, if you don't have emails, but you got Instagram, weirdly.
Send me a mail. Send me a letter.
Send him a letter. You can go obviously on all the socials. You got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got Australian Property Scout, and you can send it all in there as well. Otherwise, guys, thank you very much. I know we went for a massive ep. I don't know if we're going to split this up or if people just take massive value out of a freaking long episode. But guys, once again, thank you very much for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, listening in to the Scouting Australia podcast, powered by Australian Property Scout. I'm Sammy Gordon. He's Jimmy Ibrahim. Thanks once again, guys. Until next week.